has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
The steady disinflation process provided for significant monetary policy easing. The Bank of Ghana's monetary policy rate was cut by a cumulative 11% between January 2017 and January 2021. This translated into a reduction in short-term interest rates, with the interest rate on the 91-day Treasury bill declining from 21.2% between 2013 and 2016 to an average of 13.8% between 2017 and 2021. Lending rates have also fallen. Lending rates have also fallen from an average of 28% between 2013 and 2016 to an average of 23% between 2017 and 2021. So notwithstanding COVID-19, interest rates are still lower now than they were in the 2013 to 2016 period. In response to the recent increase in inflation, the Bank of Ghana has increased the monetary policy rate by 2.5% from 14.5% to 17%. So what is happening in the fundamentals, in the external sector fundamentals? So we look at external sector performance. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana's external payments position strengthened in the 2017 to 2021 period relative to the 2013 to 2016 years. For the first time in over 30 years, the trade balance, that is the difference between your exports and your imports, the trade balance recorded a surplus for 5 successive years, for the first time in over 30 years. We recorded surplus for 5 successive years. The trade balance was in deficit between 2013 and 2016, but moved from a deficit of 1.7 billion in 2016 to a surplus of 1.1 billion in 2017, a larger surplus of 1.8 billion in 2018, and an even larger surplus of 2.2 billion by 2019. The government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo put in a lot of effort to turn things around from the situation that used to be when we came into office in 2017. We had only one mission: stop the decline and make things better. Together, as a country, we proceeded to fix the economy. We made great gains, and the records attest to this. Prior to the coronavirus pandemic, which has impacted virtually all economies in the world, we stabilized the economy. We reduced inflation. We doubled economic growth in the first 3 years. We reduced the rate of depreciation of the cedi. The average depreciation from 2017 to 2020 was the lowest since 1992. We reduced the fiscal deficit. We improved the external payments position. reduced interest rates in line with declining inflation expectations, and we cleaned up the mess in the financial sector that we inherited. We took the decisive action to avoid the collapse of the financial sector and to save the deposits of 4.6 million people. Thousands of businesses would have collapsed if we had not saved the banking sector. We implemented our flagship programs, such as 3SHS, Planting for Food and Jobs, One District, One Factory, NAPCO, IPEP, the Zongo Development Fund, restoration of teacher and nursing training allowances, and we embarked on the digitalization of the economy. The relatively strong performance of the economy, among other things, led to Ghana being the destination of choice for foreign direct investment in West Africa, according to the 2019 World Investment Report by UNCTAD. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic changed the economic circumstances of virtually every country in the world. Today, our economy is witnessing rising prices of fuel and virtually all commodities like bread, rice, sugar, sachet water, cement, iron rods, and so on. From Malata Market through Abofor Market to Techiman Market to Takoradi Market Circle to Pando and almost everywhere across the country, prices are on the rise. In the first quarter of this year, we have also suffered a sovereign credit ratings downgrade by 2 ratings agencies. And along with that, there has been a significant depreciation of the cedi between February and March this year. These developments, ladies and gentlemen, have come as a surprise to many Ghanaians. And in the ensuing discussions, many questions have been asked about the state of the economy. These questions include: what has happened to the fundamentals? Why are the prices of goods and services increasing so fast?
A very good morning to you wherever you're watching us from. It's a pleasure to come your way with another edition of the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji Live on Pan-African TV. We are also live on several affiliates across the country. It's very important that I go through them. A lot of you have been butchering me for not doing that. My name is Sena, Nombo, by the way, and I extend greetings from the team here at Pan-African Television to you, the technical crew, the production team led by Tijani. To all of you, a good morning, and I hope you had a wonderful weekend. It's important that I go through my affiliate stations, else I get into a lot more trouble than I am in currently. Let me say a big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. They have provided their platform for us to use in the greater Accra region when it comes to radio stations that are currently tuning to us. There's Shine FM in Akachi. If you're in Akachi or its surroundings this morning, just tune into 96.9 FM. You can get to hear Alhaji and Alhaji. In Adaklu, you can tune into 91.7 FM. The station is Hills FM. In Ketekrashi, it's Nuwasi Radio. They are on 89.7 FM. In Dabalai Sela Radio, 97.1 FM. A good morning to everyone there. Diamond FM is in Tamale, 93.7 FM. They have been one of our longest affiliates. A big thank you to Gbewa Radio Yendi. We are on 106.5 FM if you're in Yendi this morning. In Saboba, we're on 95.7 FM. Is Radio Kitawan. In Elmina, we are on 105.7 FM, which is Benya FM. And on Cape FM in Cape Coast, 93.3 FM. So those are the affiliates you can get us on. A big thank you to all of them. Of course, we've been waiting for it for quite a while. I think it all started back when the cabinet went into a meeting, a 4-day meeting, where they brainstormed on how to resolve our current challenges. That is when we're all counting down to listening to Dr. Bawumia, the vice president. A lot of people thought he could come and say something maybe a bit different, we wanted to hear his view on e-levy because he had raised some concerns about whether or not e-levy should be introduced. Now that it's being introduced, the question is he still concerned about the fate of the poor? Well, he mentioned the e-levy in passing, but didn't speak on whether or not he was for it now and what has changed. We didn't hear him say that. He talked about the economy, and of course, the same justification: blame COVID, blame Ukraine. We have not done anything wrong. It is all the fault of COVID, Ukraine, Russia. That is why we are in the current situation we are in. And of course, his baby, digitalization. But before him, President Akufo-Addo granted an interview to the BBC, where he went on the defensive and even leveled some accusations against the interviewer, because he felt the interviewer was coming on to him too hard when it came to the issue of the economy. So we'll be discussing those two discussions that we've had on the economy this week: the president's interview, Vice President Bawumia's comments on the economy. And then we'll move on to Parliament, because there are 3 MPP MPs that may potentially lose their seats because of absenteeism. The first one is Honorable Sarah Joseph, whose case everybody knows about. In fact, there are those who suggest that she's the real target of the move. And then there's the man who actually mentioned that Sarah Joseph has been absent from Parliament for way too long, Honorable Kennedy Japan, who also finds himself on the list. And then there's the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Henry Kwate, who is also on the list. The Speaker of Parliament has referred them to the Privileges Committee. We'll be talking about that. And then we'll speak about the increasing calls for the auditing of COVID expenditures. Then that is where we'll end the show. Joining me this morning for the discussion, it's wonderful to see Ambassador Sam Piale, who is former Ghana's High Commissioner to India. It's been quite a while since I saw him on the show. Good morning to you. It's wonderful to see you. Sitting close to him is the General Manager of Pan-African Television. So she's playing a home game this morning. Mamia Mafrat is also the host of The Couch, a popular show on Pan-African TV. Wonderful to see you this morning. Thank you so much. And then Suleiman Ousu is a member of the MPP's communication team, and sitting close to me is Felix Kwachu-Fosu, a former Deputy Minister for Communications, who joins us this morning. And then an aide to the former President John Dramani Mahama, whose name for the first time didn't find place in the Vice President's speech. So we'll be starting with that particular discussion on the comments of the President, the Vice President on the economy. And I start from my left and I'll take it round. Felix, good morning.
Delight to be here on this Saturday morning, even as we all smart under terrible economic conditions. Sena, for quite some time now, Vice President Bawumia has come under a hailstorm of criticism and condemnation and derision. He's become the butt of all jokes and mockery. And the reason for that is that people have seen a sharp disparity between the claims he made when he exalted himself above all else and postured as the one who possessed all knowledge in economic management, as the one to turn around the economic fortunes of Ghana and bring instant and overnight prosperity to the people of Ghana. In the process, he disparaged the then government. He vilified the managers of the economy at the time and made all manner of claims. He threw theories about and insisted that he could do a much better job. So the expectation was that once the MPP won power and Bawumia was installed as the head of the economic management team, he was going to make good these claims and deliver stellar economic performance. But the objective reality and conditions of the people of Ghana suggest that this is the worst period in Ghana's economic history since the Fourth Republic. Today, if you do an assessment of our economy, it is characterized by the conditions we have ever had. You see, to analyze economy, of course, for us and in our daily lives, the best barometer is to assess the health of your pockets, whether you are able to make ends meet, whether you are able to bear the costs of everyday life, whether you are able to fend for your family, pay your bills, and in some instances have some little to put aside for a rainy day, whether the cost of living is manageable, and all of that. So those are visceral. They are not based on any scientific assessment, but they are visceral. You feel it in your gut. Why? If you wake up and you have money, you don't need me to tell you. If you go to the nearest food vendor and it is affordable, you don't need to give you a lecture on whether or not the economic circumstances are right. So if there's widespread suffering and hardship, the cost of living is escalating, prices are going up on a daily basis, it is clear that there's economic difficulty and there's economic downturn. However, that is what you call the micro economy. That when you drill down to the last person on the street, how does he feel about the economy? How is he able to fend for himself? Then you have what they call macro economic indicators. That is when you put together all these factors on the ground. What picture does it paint? So both at micro and macro level, the outcome is the same. We are in an economic catastrophe. How do you know that? Sena, as I speak to you today, one of the key things to look at is what you call your growth. And Baumia, Akufo-Addo, and the NPP likes to bandy it about. They say our growth is okay. That was never going to be a problem, because when COVID came, certain sectors shut down. Once those sectors open, growth will come back to where it was. But the way that our economy is structured is such that we don't control growth. You can discover one oil field today. So you find that your economy, but you are not churning out jobs because it's not organic. It's caused by factors affect the revenue that you expect will not be up to what you will get from. If the oil price increases, the revenue goes up. So that reflects some growth in the economy. So it is not really in your hands. Those things that are in your hands are those things that determine whether you are managing your economy well or not. One of them is your public debt. How much? Then as we sit here, I can tell you off the top of my head that the amount of money we owe today, we will never be able to pay in the short, medium, or long term. The Bank of Ghana says that as of the end of last year, we owed 351 billion Ghana cedis. We dispute that. They did what we call central government accounting. They left out state-owned enterprises who also have debts, but the debt is such that they are not able to pay, and so it falls on government to pay, or government simply funnels money to them to pay. So what should be used is general government accounting that accounts for all debts that exist within the public sector. If you did that, as of the end of last year, our debt. However, because of the rapid depreciation in the currency, the foreign parts of our debts, as of December 2021, was $28 billion. The Bank of Ghana used 6.1 cities to do the calculation in city terms. The city has dropped. To be the Bank of Ghana is now using 7.1. Do the multiplication. That is an addition of almost 30 billion Ghana cedis to the debt because of the currency depreciation without additional money. So as I speak to you, by the end of March, our debt stood, March this year, our debt stood at 400 billion Ghana cedis. We are simply not in a position to pay this debt. To make matters worse, because of the high nature of our debts, we are using virtually all our resources to service it. So this year, we'll use 50 billion Ghana cedis to service that debt. Government says it will get 100 billion. That means that half of what government will get will go into debt service alone. So when government pays salaries and then pays statutory funds, the money vanishes. We have to borrow in order to be able to make ends meet just for this year. The other one that you look at is what you call your deficit, fiscal deficit or overall deficit or balance. What happens is this: in a year you get a certain amount of money, spend a certain amount of money. When you never, that is, you assess how much you received and what you spent, you are allowed to have a deficit of about 5%. In other words, when you strike the difference between how much you earned and how much you compare it with the size of your GDP, sum of economic activity taking place within your borders, to see whether you are in the right path. If it is below 5%, even according to law, it is acceptable. Anything above that is problematic. However, by the end of 2020, when we finished the elections, this government lived far beyond its means. And so we recorded a deficit of 15.7%. By the end of last year, it was 12.1%. And it is the biggest in the history of the Fourth Republic, 30 years. It is these two things that have driven us into this economic hell and making life unbearable. Because what happens is that government then has to borrow in order to plug a hole by the deficit. As government borrows, the public debt goes up. As the public debt goes up, you are forced to pay more interest. As you pay more interest, you have less money left to finance all your operations within. So government itself is in deep financial crisis and not able to meet its obligations. It is a reason why our children who go to primary school, basic school, have not received textbooks for 3 years straight up after the curricula was changed. As I speak to you, capitation grants, which is the most basic payment at the basic level, is in arrears for several terms. If you go to secondary school level, even the much vaunted free SHS is suffering, it's limping, because government is not able to make good its commitments to them. And CHAS, NAT, and other education stakeholders have threatened that they are going to close the schools if government does not send money immediately. LEAP beneficiaries, old men and women who are the mercy of LEAP grants, have gone several cycles without payments. Indeed, last week, the World Bank had to bail us out with 45 million Ghana cedis to be able to pay LEAP beneficiaries. National service personnel are owed 3 months allowance payments. NAPCO, that the MPP made so much noise about, are they graduates or whatever it is that you call them? They are owed several months arrears. The NHIS is in arrears for several months. As for the District Assembly's Common Fund, for 6 quarters, no money has gone. And these are obligations. Government is unable to meet it. Government owes contractors over 10 billion Ghana cedis. They are not able to pay. And the reason is that all the money is going into debt servicing, payment of salaries, and then other fixed non-discretionary expenditure. So that has translated into a loss of confidence in our economy. And because of that, investors, people who have put their money in our economy, are making an assessment and seeing that the way we are going, we are likely to default on debt servicing. And we are not going to be in a position to pay back what you've borrowed. So they have all rushed here to take their money out of our economy. So between November and March, as much as $800 million left this our economy. That is what has created a scarcity of dollars and has driven the cedi on a downward spiral, so that at some point the cedi was trading at 8.2, 8.3 cedis on the forex market. And because the cedi depreciated, prices of goods and services also went up. Fuel prices took the biggest hit. It went to 10 Ghana cedis per liter. And once fuel prices go up, you know what follows. Every item on the market goes up because all of it goes through the transportation value chain. And you have to pay for the transportation costs. And transportation costs have gone up because fuel prices have gone up. So every commodity on the market has gone up. So this is the disastrous economic climate within which we live. And when Ghanaians assess this, it was diametrically opposite to what Bawumia promised when he was in opposition. And if you want to know how bad the situation is, Bawumia is the one who likes to compare. Just look at the figures I've given you today and compare it to what existed when Bawumia was bashing the NDC government. The deficit that I told you about, in 2016, it was 6.1%. 6.1%. By 2020, it was 15.7. Last year, it was 12.1, which is double of what the NDC left. So if Bawumia chastised the NDC government for having a deficit of 6.1, should we clap for him when he doubles it to 12.1? Our public debt was 120 billion, and that was the debt that had accumulated from Nkrumah's time to President Mahamad's time. Today it is 400 billion. That is an increase of 280 billion. The debt servicing I told you about, that they are using 50 billion Ghana cedis to do this year. In 2016, we used only 10 billion Ghana cedis to do it. So there was space for the then government to invest in critical sectors of the economy. Textbooks were not in arrears for 3 years. The District Assembly Compound was not in arrears for 1 year. Government was executing projects that you could feel and touch. So the cedi was exchanging at 4 cedis 20 pesos. It meant that compared to what we inherited in 2000, now you needed 3 cedis more to be able to get $1. Now under Bawumia, by the middle of March, you needed almost 4 cedis more and beyond to get $1, in addition to what they came to meet. So our economy had virtually been destroyed. Now the man who was all over the place pontificating, beating his chest, who had developed an air of arrogance around him, a cocky approach to the analysis of the economy, who had then become vice president and head of the economic management team, had suddenly vanished from the economic discussion space. He had vamoosed. He reached for the nearest rat hole to go and hide in. Lanterns and torchlights had to be lighted in broad daylight to look for him. He had fled, completely ran away, disappeared, vanished, shown a clean pair of heels when it came to economic analysis. Suddenly, he had become an IT expert and was talking about computer chips and CD-ROMs and CD-RAMs. He refused to comment on the economy. He zipped his mouth when it came to the economy. He became blind when it came to the economy. So even as the crisis worsened and the economy went into a tailspin, it was easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for Bawumia to utter any words on the economy. And it was surprising because this was a man who was so rambunctious in opposition that if the cedi moved by even a peswa, he was going to comment on it. And yet the cedi had moved so much, but he was quiet and simply didn't want. He was avoiding economic commentary like the way 14th century Europe avoided the Black Plague. Indeed, the Awudome cemetery was louder than Bawumia when it came to the economy. So Ghanaians began to wonder that what had happened. It was obvious that he was avoiding the economy because he simply could not stand the shame and disgrace that had befallen him when his hopeless incompetence had become bare, had become transparent, more transparent than glass. He simply didn't know how to face the Ghanaian people and explain why things were so. So he ran away for several months, and it was clear, even a child knew that the man was running away from the economy. And the reason was that he had destroyed it, completely messed it up, destroyed the livelihoods of Ghanaians with sheer incompetence and hopelessness. But along the line, I'm sure some cool heads in the NPP found it fit to engage him and tell him that what he was doing was an existential threat to his career, which at the moment is in complete tatters. He is not recovering from this disgrace. So they told him that, look, if he didn't speak, he should kiss whatever political career he perceives to have goodbye, because the people of Ghana were simply not going to forgive him. So eventually a date was set for him to come and speak. Before him, a litany of excuses had been made for the disastrous mismanagement of the economy. I thought that perhaps he was going to surprise everybody by accepting responsibility and doing the honorable thing by resigning. When you fail, you resign. You don't seek an extension of your mandate. When you fail, you resign. So I thought that he was going to accept responsibility, that his crass mismanagement, his total lack of know-how was responsible for the mess, and that because of that, as an honorable man, he was stepping aside for more competent hands to manage the economy. But what did we see? We saw a crestfallen, totally beaten, hapless man who had run away from all the giggling, the grinning from year to year, name calling, and snide commentary about opponents in the past. In the past, when he mounted the platform, you could hear that belly laughter that irritated many people. He would mention the name of his opponents from start to finish and blame them for everything under the sun. But this time round, his confidence was gone. You could see it. His body language was so flat. There was no cheer. There was no iota of excitement in his body, because he knew that the story he was telling was terrible, was bitter. Lo and behold, when it came to the substance of his presentation, he attributed all our economic woes to three things. He said it was COVID. Indeed, COVID had been the sing-song of all government apologists since time immemorial when this mess started. COVID was responsible for everything. Then Baumia added what they call FinSec, financial sector bailouts. And then somehow they have added what they call IPP payments. Some also call it excess capacity payments. He says that out of the public debt that we are lamenting, 50 billion Ghana cedis out of it was accounted for by financial sector payments, 25 billion to bail out banks and pay 4.6 million depositors. That 17 billion had been used to pay excess capacity. In other words, there were power plants that had excess capacity. They were not producing electricity, but there were clauses in the agreements that we refer to as take or pay. So you had to pay them whether they were producing or not. And it was such a bad, terrible, horrendous arrangement done by the NDC. So government had to pay, and it was losing us money. And then they spent 8.1 billion fighting COVID. And that it is COVID that has made it impossible for the economy to function properly. These were Baumia's excuses. I wish to submit that these are the most pitiful excuses I have ever heard churned out for the mismanagement of the economy. One, Sena, COVID did not affect Ghana alone. So it is possible to assess the impact of COVID on all economies to see whether there is any merit in the claims that are being made. Yes, COVID was a disruption. For several months, it disrupted economic activity. So your growth was going to suffer. But the fundamentals of your economy were not going to shift significantly because of COVID. All our West African neighbors who share similar economic characteristics with us went through COVID. If you want to see how well they managed it, check the number of infections. Check the number of people who died. Côte d'Ivoire. And Côte d'Ivoire was Baumia and Akufo-Addo's favorite comparators when they were in opposition. Indeed, at a point, they even demanded that electricity prices in Ghana should be the same as Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire also had COVID, just like us. Côte d'Ivoire has a population of 25 million. They lost about 500 people. We lost 1,200 people. So on the basis alone, you know who managed COVID better. Côte d'Ivoire has less infections than Ghana did. So on the basis of that, you see that they put in measures that protected their citizens better than we did. Côte d'Ivoire also has a port in Abidjan which was shut. They have an airport that was shut. Their teachers also didn't go to school. Their students also stayed at home. They also did a lockdown like we did. They protected their citizens. They also distributed free things to their citizens to protect them. They also bought PPEs. They also the car personnel. When all was said and done, at the end of 2020, which is the year that COVID really affected us and our neighbors, their deficit was below 5%. Ours was 15.7%, 3 times what Cote d'Ivoire had recorded. Their debt to GDP ratio was 45%. Ours was over 80%. The difference between us and Cote d'Ivoire and all the other West African countries, indeed, small countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Togo, Benin, Mali, Burkina Faso, all of them had deficits lower than ours. But the difference between us and them is that Bawumia and Akufo-Addo saw COVID as an excuse to engage in over expenditure, in order that, because elections were coming, it will create a feel-good factor for the electorate to go and vote for them. That is all. All countries didn't have elections, so they stayed within their means. This government only had a responsibility to stop the spread of the disease and protect Ghanaians through medical means. And then in vulnerable communities, especially in the time of the lockdown, take measures to ensure that people do not suffer. Our lockdown lasted 3 weeks. After that, people went back to their normal businesses. There were a few sectors that were closed, though. But what we needed to do did not warrant the actions they took. It should not have led to a deficit of 15%. So that is the difference. So the effects of COVID were not as bad as they make it seem here. It was the unwise decision to overspend that plunged us into that hole. So the COVID excuse stands dismissed. It simply does not make sense when you look at the objective facts. Again, let's assess the banking sector cleanup. Sena, 9 banks, according to this government, were mismanaged. Indeed, when we were in power, we did what we call an asset quality review to look at the health of the banks. We determined that some of them had been mismanaged, and therefore there were problems with solvency. The ability to sustain their operations was very limited. We then decided that these were indigenous banks, and it was important to keep Ghanaian interest within the banking and financial sector. So we were going to hold those responsible for the mismanagement and the rundown of the banks responsible, take them through legal action. But we were going to put in money that would be sufficient to save the bank so that they continue operating. You see, what happens is that there's no bank in this world, not Chase Manhattan, not Deutsche Bank, not HSBC, not the Royal Bank of Scotland, not Standard Chartered, not ABSA, not the Rand Bank, that will survive if customers do a run on it. If they hear that Pan-African Bank is going to collapse, everybody will come here and demand their money. When that happens, the bank will collapse, no matter how wealthy they are. So what you do is not to create that condition. However, assuming that the bank was not solvent, you can pump in capital. What banks essentially do that, they take you and I, they take our deposits, and then they do business with it, they trade with it, they lend, they do invest, they make profits, and then they pay dividends to customers and shareholders, whilst maintaining a certain minimum balance to be able to pay for deposits. But what happens is that you and I and all customers don't go for their money at the same time. So there's always some money to turn around. The moment you give indication that the bank has collapsed and you are liquidating them, everybody will come for their money and the bank won't survive. This government decided that in some cases, the banks had owners who were politically exposed. In other words, they were perceived to belong to the NDC. It is a fact that Dr. Kwabena Dufo, for instance, was a prominent figure in the NDC. He had a bank, NIB. But what is wrong with Dr. Kwabena Dufo being NDC and having a bank? Ken Oforiatta, why? Is he not MPP? Is he not Akufo-Addo's cousin? So if he can own Data Bank, a financial entity, why can't Dr. Dufo, an NDC man, own a bank? So that in itself is not a crime. But sometimes vindictiveness took the better part of them. Let us deal with them and teach them a lesson so that we will remain the captains of the financial sector. They did the same to Heritage Bank, whose owner, Alhaji said they are going to go. They perceived as NDC. His bank was actually solvent. He didn't have the problems that the 8 others had, yet they collapsed it. The banking sector collapse alone sent 57,000 people home. They became jobless. Some of them are now Uber drivers. Some of them are doing menial jobs to survive. Meanwhile, all that government needed was 9 billion cedis to recapitalize these banks and get them operating. They decided that they will collapse it. When they decided that they will collapse it, they didn't even make provision to pay those people back their deposits. What had happened was that by mid of these banks started agitating. Some of them actually reached out to the opposition, the NDC, and lamented what they felt was unfair and uncertain treatment from government. So we made a commitment that if we came to power, we will resolve that matter in a manner that would be beneficial. This government perceived that as a political threat. They had not budgeted at the beginning of the year to pay 25 billion. Indeed, Kebo Foyata and Baumia are on record to have said that even if they were going to pay deposits, they were going to issue zero-rated bonds. They were going to pay them in and spread 5 years. Which would not put government under a lot of pressure. But because they heard the communication coming from the NDC that we will take steps to resolve this matter, they quickly engaged in knee-jerk reaction and then decided that even if it will sink our economy, they will borrow 25 billion to pay 4.6 million people, when they could simply have saved them with 9 billion. So the 25 billion they spent was a conscious policy decision they took. Sena, you and I did not put cudgels and cutlasses and machetes and guns on the head of Baumia to go and pay 25 billion. He and his economic team decided that they would do it because it was politically expedient, even though it was economically unwise. When they finished, they mounted platforms and said that they had paid 4.6 million people, so they should vote for them for elections. It was one of their major campaign items. Because they won the elections, you can then see that that campaign worked, right? So if you have benefited from a policy decision you took, you cannot come and cite same as the reason why we are in economic doldrums. You understand the point I'm making? You cannot seek credit for an action and then blame that action for your woes. You can't eat pork soup and hate pork. If you beat your chest that you are good, you have resolved the problems of 4.6 million people and they have voted for you, you can't come and tell them because I have done it for you, I'm an economic mess. So, excuse me. It is not excusable. It is an untenable excuse, which I dismiss as well. Now, let's come to the bit about capacity payments. You see,
that may have to be the last.
No problem. No. First of all, they have tended to demonize take-or-pay clauses. Sena, there's no independent power producer. The thing is that the government of Ghana simply does not have money to build enough power plants to cater for our electricity needs. So you have what you call independent power producers, private entities who build these plants and sell electricity to ECG. They must get a guarantee that they will make returns from the investment they are making. So whether you take the power or not, you must pay them so that they don't run into a loss. It is a rational business decision. It is perfectly legal. Nothing wrong with it. President Kufuor had IPPs whose contracts had take-or-pay clauses. This government, they are building an LNG terminal in Tema. I hear that by July they will finish. The agreement has take-or-pay clauses in it. So take-or-pay clauses are not bad. They are regular features of power contracts. It is simply a hedge against losses by investors. No investor will put in money if he knows he's going to lose. But again, because of shallow populism and cheap propaganda, Baumia and Kenofoyata have been going around creating the impression that take-or-pay clauses are demonic. So if it is in a contract, then it is terrible. And then they say that when they came to power, there were a number of power agreements that had take-or-pay clauses. So we have excess capacity. So they are forced to pay. The claim was that annually they were paying $1 billion, which now will translate to about 7 billion Ghana cedis. So comes this together and says that they were forced to pay 17 billion, and that is the reason why we have economic difficulty. Meanwhile, your colleague Alhaji Suhini in June last year, tabled a very specific question to the finance minister. And who are the entities you have paid it to? The finance minister on the floor of parliament goes there and says that between 2017 and 2020, I have paid $937 million, which, if you were to use today's exchange rate, is about $7 billion. The finance minister is on record. There's a video. I'm sure you can play it for your viewers if you may answer it. It is recorded in the parliamentary answer of 17th June 2021. And Sena, it is the finance minister who paid, not Bawumia. Yes, Bawumia. Interestingly enough, there are three entities that the finance minister mentioned: AXA, Power Plant, Car Power, and Sena Power. Two of them, AXA and Car Power, the agreements elapsed. This government that hates take or pay so much, that says we don't need those plans, they are excess, and that the payments are obnoxious, it is collapsing our economy, have extended the AXA agreement by 5 years. They have extended the Car Power agreement by 10 years. So, take or pay and excess capacity charges are terrible, they are horrible, they are demonic, they are occultic, they are devilish. Yet, this government has extended. So, Bawumia was peddling an outrageous falsehood, a flat lie. So, Sena, in a nutshell, all those three excuses, with the greater respect to Bawumia, do not make sense. They are not the reason why we are here. It is the reckless decision to spend beyond their means to win the 2020 elections that has plunged us in this way. In any event, even if we were to accept the untenable excuse of that 50 billion, I have told you that our total debt as of March is 400 billion. Take 50 billion out of it. We are left with 350 billion. That would be an increase of 230 billion Ghana cedis over what we make. So that 230 billion is where did it come from? Is that what has collapsed? When he was in power, three things were on top of his brain every time. Taxes. He condemned taxation to the hilt. He condemned borrowing. He said it was a lazy man's approach to governance. And then he attacked us on a deficit. On all these three, he has proven to be totally flat-footed. So what we have is a talkative individual who only could talk in opposition. But in government, he has been so badly exposed. His image has been so shattered. He has been so clearly shown not to possess any extraordinary skill beyond an ability to make claims he cannot prove. So, the events that Bawumia did was in response to intense public pressure, I beg your pardon. But it failed to show why he should not be held liable for the economic disaster that he has supervised in this country. And if he was a man of integrity, he would have resigned to save himself the agony of being vilified, being mocked, being derided, and being made the butt of jokes, because it is going to continue to follow him perpetually for as long as he remains in public office.
Thank you.
So he should cut his losses.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll go to Solomon shortly. But before that, whilst I was acknowledging our affiliates, I forgot Global FM 105.1 in Ho, and also Volta 1 TV, which is in the Volta region. Once again, whilst I'm in the Volta region, big thank you to Global FM 105.1 in Ho. If you're around that area, just tune into that station, you can hear us. Shine FM in Akachi 96.9, and also in the Volta region. Eos FM at Daklo 91.7, and Stella Radio 97.1 in Dabala. Solo.
Sena, good morning and good morning to everybody. The NDC had any magic wand to deal with the economic position of this country. And it's very interesting how in the final analysis he was able to conjure 400 billion from their own statistical data when they had no authority, in fact, in economics or finance, to even do so. Yet he has been able to give himself a whole figure to represent how much the country is borrowing. It's very interesting. So the truth of the matter is that from 17th of November 2021, when the Minister of Finance went to Parliament to present the 2022 budget, he admitted that the country was facing some form of challenges. Indeed, recent austerity measures that we brought, he re-echoed the challenges that we faced in the economy. The president also came to address the nation through the State of the Nation's address and admitted that we were facing some form of challenges. And Dr. Bawumia's lecture also, in the opening paragraph, admitted that the country was going through some form of difficulty. So I'm wondering where my brother is coming from by saying that we have not accepted that indeed we are facing any challenge. One of the ways of dealing with the problem is to first identify the problem, acknowledge that we have a problem, you identify it, and then you can profess solution. That is what this government has done perfectly. I'm not too much interested in doing comparison, but if you sit here and listen to what has been spewed, then you are compelled to, as it were, put the data down, do the comparative analysis, and see whether or not this economy could be described as being terrible, as has been painted this morning. Indeed, as he rightly said, the economy is about someone's pocket. And Sena, it is very difficult for you to determine, especially in a part of the world, where when you go to someone today that you have 10,000 cities or 5,000 cities, the person will have and tell you, oh, I don't have anything. God, let's pray to God. So it is very difficult. So at the micro level, everybody has his or her problem. Now, the only way you are able to identify how healthy an economy is to go to the macro level. And we all have an institution, the Ghana Statistical Service, that compiles some of these data for us to do a comparative analysis. If today our brothers in the NDC feels that we no more desire or need to rely on data that are provided by the Ghana Statistical Service, let them make it clear so that we all know that the new norm is that when we come, based on my situation, to generalize and then make a determination. When we say an economy, there are there are about 6 or 7 indicators that you can always look at to judge a government as to whether it's performing well or not. I will take first of all the inflation situation of this country, where we were when we took over, where we are now, and where we are going. And that is basically what we must be doing. What was the rate when we took over in 2016 under their regime? We were doing 17.5% as our inflation rate. You understand? 17.5% inflation. Between 2017, 2018, 2019, what was the inflation rate? 2017, it was reduced to 7.2%. We reduced it again. We maintained it 7.2%. 2021, we did 10%, and COVID struck. So we have to do the analysis from 2017, 2020, before the COVID period, so that we would know that indeed COVID had any impact on our economy or not. You go back to what we call the interest rate, and here I'm going to compare the figures that are available today to their own figures, and when we are done, as to whether or not they will have any legs to stand on will be another matter for the general viewers to determine. On the interest rate score, when they were in power in 2016, about to leave office, we were doing on the average 91-day treasury rate was 21.2%. Under the NDC government or under the NDC regime that my brother has painted the impression that they were doing something serious, managing the economy, were having the best of economic management team. They were doing 21.2% as our 91-day treasury rate. Between 2017 and 2021, we have been doing 13.8%. Now, when you come to the lending rate, that's what you and I, when we go to bank, the amount at which we borrow. When Pan-African TV, my sister is there, when she decides to go to bank to borrow money to expand business here, Under the regime that my brother believed they did so well, we were borrowing on the average 28%. Which serious business thrives with 28% interest rate or lending rate? Currently, we are being averaged 23%. So how can anybody convince me sitting down here? I don't want to even convince any other that 28% interest rate is better than 23% as we are doing currently. It is not true. Now we go to the issue of exchange rate. And these are economic indicators that determines as to whether or not a government is performing or not. Sena, in the history of this country, at least in the Fourth Republican under the Fourth Republican Constitution, the NDC has been a government that has performed abysmally when it comes to the management of our exchange rate. Between 1993 to 1996, the average depreciation of the cedi was in the region of 27.19%. The NPP that was in power in 1993, between 1993 to 1996. In 1997 to 2000, they did quite well. They reduced the average depreciation rate from the 27% to 25%. It was not the NPP that was in power. From 2001 to 2004, when we assumed the reins of governance of this country, we reduced to 11.04%. And it continued to 6.77 between 2005 to 2008. And when they came back to power, they increased it again. And they ended the year of our depreciation, that's 2016, 18%. On the average, we have reduced or depreciated by 6.8% between 2017 to date. The average annual depreciation of the city. So, on this score, how would anybody say we have performed terribly? You go to the GDP, and these are acceptable standards by which any government can be measured. I have told you I'm not a fan of comparing two regimes, because at the end of the day, Ghanaians have given us the mandate to better their lives. But sometimes you need to trace where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going, so that the issues will be put in the right perspective. When we took over, the economic messiahs, the apostles of good management, they had grown this economy in 2016 by 3.4%. That was our growth rate. 2017, 2018, 2019, we have doubled what they did, their effort, until COVID struck. And I'm saying all this to let you know. From there, I'll come to the period of COVID to let us know the impact of COVID on our economy. Trade balances. What we know in this country, for the entire period that the National Democratic Congress, under the able leadership of John Mahama, led this country, of which my brother was an active partaker in the governance of this country, for 8 solid years, we experienced deficit in our trade balance. In fact, in the year 2013, there was a deficit of negative 3 billion. What it means is that the amount of goods we imported into this country far exceeded amount of goods we rather exported, and that there was a net of negative $3 billion. In 2014, they did something good by reducing the deficit to $1.4 billion. 2015, they increased it again to $3 billion. And they ended it. That's why the Ghanaians booted them out. In 2016, a deficit of 1.7 billion. Now, guess what? We took over power in 2017, and immediately we came to power, we turned things around. And here, let me greet the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry, Alhaji, for a yeoman job. And these are facts and figures. Ambassador is saying, hey, these are facts and figures from the Bank of Ghana, from the Ministry of Finance, from the Ghana Statistical Service that are not conjuring from anywhere. In 2017, when we took over, we turned the deficit into a surplus of $1.1 billion. Increased it in 2018 to $1.8 billion. Maintained the momentum and increased it to $2.2 billion in 2019. COVID struck, and we did not even deviate from the norm that much. In 2020, we did 2.04 billion, and we started dropping. But we are still in the positive as against their negative. Then you go to the current account position of our country. What has been our current account position? When we took over, they had left us at 6.1 billion. That could cover maybe 2 months of our import cover. As we speak, we have $9.5 billion. And how would anybody convince me sitting down here that we are performing terribly, yet all the facts and figures I'm turning out are way in advance or better than what my brothers left? And he knows it. Sena, COVID, nobody can underestimate the impact of that pandemic. In fact, when it came, Ghanaians must play back some of the things that were said in this country. Nobody knew what it was. We didn't know. Ever since we were born, when was the last time you were made to sleep or be indoors? Because we didn't know what we were about. We didn't know how the whole thing, the medical professionals didn't even come to consensus that this was the nature of the virus. And so the president addressed the nation and said, we knew how to bring an economy back, but how to save lives, we didn't know. So it was better for us to spend money to save lives, for the lives to come and work to pay for the debt. We bought PPEs. We increased recruitment of health professionals. We gave them tax incentives, and so on and so forth. In fact, people were made to stay home, public sector workers, without working, yet they never forfeited any salary. We paid them. School children were fed, including their staff, close to 11 million. In fact, we expended close to 600 million cedis on small and medium scale enterprises to put them on their feet, apart for COVID. So how would anybody sit anywhere and say COVID did not have any impact? In any case, we did all these things. Whilst we could not mobilize close to 12 billion, in fact it's 11.93 billion tax revenue, we couldn't mobilize it because people were not working. Some sectors of the economy had been closed. Yet we expended close to 14 billion. So clearly there was a deficit. And these all came about because we had entered into a situation, an unfamiliar territory, pandemic, that we needed to save lives. And indeed, lives were saved. My brother was comparing us to Cote d'Ivoire. That whereas Cote d'Ivoire, 500 people died, it means they managed their country well, forgetting that we all do not have the same population baseline. But you agree that we have more people than them. You see, when you were talking, you present a lot of factual inaccuracies. If I put you into on the spotlight, but is that the way we are going to do the program? No, you are not saying anything. When you sat here and conjured 400 billion from heaven to come and tell the people of this country that we are owing 400 billion, when you don't have, when I ask you the source, you will sweat before you get the source. Officially, the country is owing 351 billion. What is as of December? Do you have any different figure apart from what you bought from your house? You see, the problem we have in this country, people listen to themselves and think that what they are saying is the truth.
You will not dispute what I'm saying.
I have disputed that you don't have the
You
figures.
have quoted the figure up to December. Between December and now, it's 3 months. So, has the city not disputed? The Bank of Ghana, when they are calculating debt, don't they use current exchange rates? So, do you need anybody to come and tell you where the city is?
So you see, we have a problem. You see why we have a problem.
What problem?
When I have allowed you to say things that were not true, and I believe
go ahead.
You say complain, don't complain, my brother. So you see, COVID had an impact on this economy. Now, we were talking about take or pay being a very sound policy, and I know why you have to spend more time to explain it, because it was a bad policy in all respects. See, it's just like telling Pan-African team, you have a staff and you have a staff bus system here. That whether or not the bus comes to pick staff, the company must pay. Which sound businessman would do that? What are we talking about? So it was a bad policy, and because of that, we have to pay. Even when energy or power had been produced and we did not need it, we needed to pay for it. We had known our energy requirements at all times. So if you are entering into an agreement, why wouldn't you look at our energy needs and sign agreements accordingly, so that we will not have to be paying more? We know our peak demands, we know our off-peak demands. So why would you go and sign more agreements just to tie this country into debt? Sena. Now he was talking about what do you call it? Leap. We be not being in a position to pay leap. See, leap beneficiaries are being paid, and they continue to be paid. In fact, when we came, where they left off, we had added close to 150,000 beneficiaries to those that are benefiting, and it is a better situation that we came to meet. Capitation grant. Who was talking about capitation grant being in arrears? Says who? The beneficiaries themselves. Apart from we doubling the rate from 4.5 cities to 10 cities, they are enjoying it. You understand? And these are figures that nobody can dispute it, except those that want to do mischief. See, you go back and ask yourself why these figures during their tenure was how it was, or how it is, as I've explained to you. You remember between the period of 2011 to 2016, this country never had any light. We were treated to the worst form of human settlement since creation. In fact, the creator of this world, when he came and there was darkness, he said, let there be light. It was the National Democratic Congress that came into this country and said, let there be darkness. For us to be in darkness for close to 6 years. And to that extent, if you took a ministry like the Trade and Industry Ministry, between 2010 to 2016, they could not implement a major policy. Why? Because there was no energy. We are talking about Trade and Industry Ministry. If you don't have your energy needs going, if you don't have the lights on, how would industries thrive? Yet we have been told here that we are performing terribly when the lights are on. Then, now he spoke about we having a debt of 400 billion without even taking their own debt out of it. How much did they leave us as debt? You left us 122 billion debt. To take it out, and that 122 billion is the one they are talking as though that 122 billion does not attract interest rate. Let's even assume you took our hours out of it. Would the 122 billion that NDC left not attract interest rate? So if our debt portfolio has moved from 122 to a current of 351, it includes the 122 that they borrow plus the interest on that. You would ask, why as a government, when they took over a debt of 9 billion, they were able to, within a space of 8 years, increase it to almost 1,244% percentage change in terms of borrowing. That is the reality. Figures don't lie. They did it. When you ask the new patriotic party what we have done with the money we borrow, and I saw him attempting to go in that direction, that they have nothing to show for. Indeed, we have a lot to show for. If you went to Kumasi Phase 2, the airport, you will see that investments are happening there. I will even take you to Kumasi because you say it's far. Let us deal with ourselves in Accra here. Go to the flower pot there. You will see happening. Go to Adrigano. The other part you see. You haven't seen the flower pot? Have you seen the pillars?
Which flower pot are you referring to?
No. The Palace Mall. You know the Palace
Mall?
Yes. Have you seen the...
No. Did MPP erect the palace?
Oh, Master, we went and borrow. You have any contract figures? But when it gets to your turn, then you explain what...
I just wanted to...
Yes.
I wanted to know what we are talking about.
No. Is it?
From where?
Are you now the host or something? You understand? I drink Ghana. When you go to the beach road, you see construction going on there. The railway from Tema to Mpakadan, you have seen it. When you go to Wenchi, the water project, we have done Yendi. In addition to that, when you go to about 10 of the regions, we have the 5,000-seater capacity stadium. You have seen all this. It all came through the borrowings. These are hard facts that you cannot come here and lie to the people of this country.
5,000 capacity stadiums in 10 regions.
10 regions.
Stadium.
Go to Ho. Now, I mean stadium. You can say stadium or you can say AstroTurf or whatever. But it's 5,000-seater capacity. It's across the country. I can mention all the places for you. You have one in Ho, you have one in Kofodia, you have one in Axim, you have one in Doma, and these are happening. But those that don't want you to hear about it, they will just divert your attention from these developments and then come and tell you that what is the price of a bowl of kinky. Yes, we agree that things are not easy for anyone at this moment. But if you have a government that did not face anything to the magnitude of COVID or to the Russian invasion in Ukraine, yet they presented you with these figures that I've given to you, a very bad economy, and we as a government came in, started improving upon it, and we were struck with something that we have never experienced before. And in the midst of all this, we are outperforming whatever they left us. Then the situation cannot be terrible. But that is a challenge that we all have to deal with it, and we are dealing with it. You see, the nature of our economy is what we have to, as it were, structure until we are able to move substantially from allowing foreign denomination or determination of our economy. We will continue to have some of these problems. And see, guess what? How we are dealing with the issues. We realize as Africa, there is a huge market here, close to 3 trillion. But we do not trade amongst ourselves. And so when we came to power, one of the things that we needed to do was to try and consolidate that position. Convince Africa to understand that there was a need now than ever to have a common market that is functional. And that was how come, as a government, we fought together with our peers to have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area established, and went ahead to fight to have the headquarters of that organ established. It was not a small feat that anybody can put. It took a lot of thinking, planning, and credibility to be able to get the office in Accra. Now, beyond that, having gotten that one established, you must have your people to be able to take advantage of that market. Else other African countries will take advantage of it. So what did we do? We started strengthening the local industry. That's how come you have a policy like the one district, one factory. The essence of that one district, one factory is to produce, to market to the African market, so that we can get more exchange to improve on our trade surpluses or balance of trade position. And it will interest you to note that as we speak, 106 of the factories are functioning, functioning properly, having employed more than 160,000 families in this country, which was never 106 currently running. It is there. These facts, what I'm saying, is all over the place. Ambassador, you cannot provide contrary figures when I'm giving you the right figures. It is everywhere. Your brother knows it. 106 factories running. To better enhance the efficacy of these SMEs and so on and so forth, the government established business resource centers in 67 places in this country to better train our entrepreneurs to understand the modern way of doing business so that they can take advantage of that. That is a way of modernizing this economy. Sena, until we came into power, did you have 5 of the top automobile companies assembling vehicles in this country? Tell me. And I'm being told here that, hey, this is a terrible economy. An economy that is terrible, that the VW Volkswagen is establishing an assembly plant where in Ghana here is terrible. An economy that Toyota is having an assembly plant here is terrible. An economy that Suzuki is having an assembly plant here is terrible. An economy that Nissan is having an assembly plant here is terrible. An economy that Peugeot, Sinotrack have an assembly plant here. How can anybody convince me? For these companies, top automobile companies, to relocate or have the assembly plant sited here, it means they had so much confidence in the economy, and by extension had so much confidence in this government. What did we do to attract these automobile companies into this country? It was a simple thing. A vision espoused by the trade minister to have an automobile development plan or policy, which was developed in conjunction with this automotive or automobile giants, for them to come to realization that there was the need to have their offshoots set up in this country. How would any serious multinational company go and set up an organization or an institution or a branch thereof in an economy described as terrible? So, Sena, we are doing very well. All that we want Ghanaians to understand is that the two of the devils, there is a higher devil and there's a lesser devil. We are not saying we have done everything. We are not saying there are no challenges in the economy. We admit Ghanaians are going through some form of hardship. But the Ghanaian must look at what happened yesterday and just oppose it to today and see that any attempt or any mistake to be deceived by sweet-tongued NDC will send them back to the days of having a deficit surplus of trade, a reduced growth rate, a high inflation, a high lending rate, a high treasury rate for their standard of living to reduce transit. Look, when we came to meet an unemployment rate of 6.27 or 9%. By 2017-28, we had reduced it to 4.23%. In fact, if we took the youth unemployment rate, the World Bank itself would agree with me that we reduced it from 12% to a current 9%. All these things are positive policies that produce system. It took us to bring NAPO for about 100,000. It took us to reduce interest rate to allow companies to be able to access cheaper credit to be able to expand their companies. And when you have all these indices or indicators, let nobody convince you that we are in a highly terrible situation and that our situation has improved from worse and we would definitely to better as the days go by. We don't anticipate to have COVID ahead of us. And we pray that the good Lord will also shower his mercies so that we do not encounter what we encountered in 2020. And that going forward, we will also not do what our predecessor did. So that when we are struck with such a situation, you will be found wanted, and that you will have a massive buffer throughout the world. Every country is suffering. He said we should do peer review. Nigeria is suffering. They are doing an inflation of 15.7% now. They subsidize their fuel, yet they don't have the fuel to even fetch. Food shortages. Every day their people are complaining. Go to the US for the first time, GDP, debt to GDP, almost 120. Go to UK, 103%. And so on and so forth. On the average, the IMF research tells you that the debt to GDP around the globe will be 97%. So if you are doing less than that, under the circumstance, nobody can say that the economy is intact as they want the world to believe. Today, I stop it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. There's one thing on the free surplus, I think, is it not because of the 2 extra fields you inherited?
No.
Not because of that.
Also, if you are going to say that, is it because of what they did that we are having all these challenges?
The 2 extra of...
No. It's a trade surplus.
That's not the reason for
No. It's a trade surplus. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
It's a... Why must you...
Okay.
I have provided you...
Please, thank you. Thank you.
What did you do to send us?
Thank you. Let me
understand what you talking
about. Let me read a few messages.
You gave me I'm going to owe 400 billion.
Let me read a few messages from some of our viewers. Please, can I...
But Sena, did you question some of the
I was just...
What are you talking about?
Please, this is not the format of this program.
So you want to destroy the format of the program?
Just 2 minutes.
No, you cannot give him 2 minutes. If you give him 2 minutes, I'll take 2 minutes.
We come
No, if you give him 2 minutes, I'll take 2 minutes.
I'll come back.
I sat here listening to you.
There are a few messages.
I have the problem.
There are a few messages that I would just like to read on our Facebook page before I go to Ambassador Sampiale. And Dr. Kwame J says, so after the MPP has been in office for 6 years, they are still doing blame game. If not John Mahama and the NDC, then COVID. If not COVID, then it's Russia-Ukraine war. The Ghanaians vote for you to come and blame. MPP never again. There's also positive change, but now says in textbook economics, before you do calculation, you must hold everything constant. But in real life economics, you can't hold my life constant. This is what differentiates a real economist from a textbook economist like Dr. Baumia. He says, Sapi Agbo says, kindly drawn the attention of Solomon to the fact that the admissions by the finance minister, the president, and his vice, the country is facing economic challenges. It's neither here nor there. Ghanaians already know that the economy is in comatose. The crux of the matter is the unwillingness of the MPP administration to admit that the abysmal present state of the nation is as a result of their class super incompetence, blaming COVID-19 pandemic and the less than 3 months Russia-Ukraine crisis as the cause of our woes. Koshi Badon says in 2017, when the government was barely formed, the growth rate was 8%, certainly due to a kicking of the sea sown by the previous administration. When the competent governments deployed all the excellent measures my brother was talking about, the growth rate reduced to 6% in 2018 and 5.6% in 2019, despite the resilient economy we were promised. The economy collapsed to 0.4% growth rate in 2020 in the face of COVID-19 when our peers did above 2%. Impact is the value of action. That's what he says. The Sapi Agbo has the couple says Solo is being economical with the truth. He should be reminded the World Bank predicted a rosy picture for the Ghanaian economy for 2017 due to the capital investment the administration did in the oil sector. If Solomon is churning out figures as money spent to mitigate the effects of COVID, did he provide sources to support the submission? Having said that, can Solomon be magnanimous enough to disclose how much the MPP government received from IMF, World Bank, and other donors? There's Wisdom Ricky, is it Potugbu, who says, I don't really understand. Okay. It's not for you to understand. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me read one from Kojo Chumbwa, who sent me a message specifically to you. He says that, Sena, can you kindly explain to Solomon that when we go to the pumps to buy fuel, we don't pay the differences in rates. When we need dollars to finance our businesses, we don't pay the precipitous differences in rates and growth rates. In December 2021, you needed 60,000 Ghana cedis to buy $10,000. Today, 4 months later, you need 80,000 Ghana cedis to buy the same $10,000. The cedi has depreciated a whopping 25% in real terms in just 4 months. Between 2016 and now, fuel prices per gallon has gone up from 16 Ghana cedis per gallon to 46 Ghana cedis per gallon, and almost 300% increase. Electricity rates have been increased since February 2022 by 100% and is scheduled to increase further in June. Today, as we speak, ECG simply arrogates themselves service charges off your prepaid meter every month without any recourse to the customer on the meters that have been purchased. And the ECG still owes 2.63 billion cedis because the ESLA, which was described as being a nuisance tax, has now been collateralized, so no debts are being paid. Meantime, whilst all this is going on, the president finds time to engage in luxurious pursuits like flying an LXDIO, private jets, and sleeping in the most expensive hotel rooms in the world. The latest being the Prince Alexander suite of the Claridge Hotel, which room costs an average of 120,000 Ghana cedis per night. As I write, nurses, teachers, and other government workers haven't been paid. What a team. What a solid team. Did I hear solo praise Alan Cash? Is he your candidate? Ambassador Sampiali. I was reading from Chumba, but I told you.
Oh, so all these things is
Ambassador.
One day, I decided to sit in the VIP to Takrady. And after reaching Kaswa, a handsome man like Solo jumped into the bus and started preaching. He quoted several verses from the Bible. But a young lady decided to Google, use the Bible to say, Pastor, but what you said about this quotation is not in the verse you have said. Then the man said, are you a pastor? The man said, are you a pastor? So look, we have been here to discuss facts and figures. And that if your figures does not sit with the reality, somebody with the real facts would have to question. That doesn't mean that it's undermining your integrity. Because most of the data you have provided have been checked and found to be untrue. Most of the facts. I was driving, I was watching another sister station, and they were fact-checking most of these facts. Now, you have said a lot of things. Then the fancy man would ask, no kasi then. In a okasi then. This station to the filling station, you are going to buy fuel almost 10 cedis per liter. No so. No so. If one man goes to the market now, the reality is that he's not going to buy in percentages. How much do you buy in percentages these days? He's going to buy things with physical cash. So, it's only MPP that holds everything constant, including human life. It's only the MPP. Because all the figures you are talking about, the increases, whatever it is, it's against the 4% salary increase of the static 4% increase of the worker. No so. Sena, no so. The worker from who you are extracting all these things, his salary is stuck at 4%. 4. And that is for 2 years running. For the last time, maybe you would have to tell your MPP people that talking about Dumso is like a broken record. Because I was old enough to see Pastor Mensah Otabil, Pastor Archbishop Duncan Williams, and a few of them go to Akosombo to kneel down to pray for the rains to fill the Akosombo Dam. That time, Kofi Wayo, our friend Kofi Wayo, came to Alhaji and said that, oh, every Ghanaian should go to Akosombo and carry bucket to fill the Akosombo Dam. What was the situation for that? What was the reason why we were asked to go and carry water into the Akosombo Dam? That is 2012. 20. You remember?
That was under President Ajekufu.
Yeah. So way back Kufuor's time, Dumso had started. And at that time, you were not in Ghana, so you didn't see it. But that was the situation. It ran through this country, like we are saying. And for the longer part of John Mahama's reign, he faced Dumso. Also, something which was more drastic than COVID in terms of economic loss, not human loss, in terms of economic loss. If, like in your own words, if we had spent 5 years in Dumso, Sena, what that was saying, you were saying, 5 years in Dumso, compare that to 1.5 years of COVID and do the economic analysis. But the truth of the matter is that John Dramani Mahama said, all previous governments have managed the crisis, but I will solve it. Felix, I think you were there when he made that statement. I saw you in Parliament that day, that I will fix it. If you like, tell your Minister of Energy to shut one of the plants that Mahama brought, to shut it down 1 minute, and you see what will happen in this country. If you like, ask him to ask your minister to shut one of them, and you see what will happen in this country. Because the B Dam is not giving us what the support that should be given to Akosombo. And as at today, our production in energy is based on what Mahama invested in. Have you ever heard of Atoa Bogas? Have you heard it? And you know what he's doing? It has even employed this man. What is the name? Apart from the energy delivery and saving this country millions of dollars every month from gas production, it has employed your people. Yet you think that Mahama is a devil. Bad economy. You see, Sena, when we went to the university, if you are doing economic analysis, unless you are doing a long-term trend analysis, you compare year on year. Not so. So if you are doing an analysis like Baumia and Solomon are doing, and you take factors from 2013, 2014, 2016, and that, you are not doing economic analysis, because the revenues are different, the economic indicators are different. Only that the indicators are different, but the factors that fill the indicators are different. The population was not as it is today. Are you following what I'm saying? So it doesn't make economic sense for a country to be wasting our time, talking about averages and economics, when the reality is that people are really, really suffering. Let me ask you, after that 2-hour long waste of time, Baumia standing 2 hours and talking, that has it changed petrol price today? That 2 hours of talk, has it changed market prices? It has not. So the talk was useless. The talk about, what I'm saying is that, look, when Baumia was going to speak, I had some confidence that after the speech, certain things would change, because it was made to believe that investors were waiting on the speech. Nothing has happened. But the figures and the talk and the facts he gave, the finance minister had given that in the budget. Not so. The president has recited them in the Sena. Not so. So what was new? That this Saturday we are wasting our time following Baumia again and discussing him. What's the point? That in this Ramadan time we have a Muslim standing there and telling us the same story and the same lies. Why? Solo. The truth is that Ghanaians are buying petrol 10 cedis. No, so the lie is that the averages are better. There's a lie. The averages that you are talking is good or bad is a lie. The truth is that today, when you sit in your car, you are going to buy petrol, it is almost 10 cedis. Look at the foreign exchange. So look at the foreign exchange. And if you are, I know you are a business person, and if in the interest rate is not affecting you, then we have a problem. If the interest rate is not affecting you, we have a problem. And I was expecting that Bawumia in his speech or long address would have given us factors going forward, what we are going to do to come out of the problem. So, Pasolo, I'm sure you are not one of the communicators who has to be paid, who has been paid out of the 6 million budget.
Oh, this is unfair to those communicators.
Yes.
Which communicators?
Because I listened to some of you. I listened to some of you.
I'm not sure you want to tell fellas that I'm giving money to say whatever
and
they say.
Insensitive things. So listen. And the insensitive things people say. You know, today people are really suffering. What we expect from you in government. See, we are not in we are in democracy, so nobody is going to remove you. What we expect you people to say is that, yes, having admitted the pain, you go ahead and say that we caused the pain. And let me tell you why. Ama, during the registration exercise, I was driving to Achimota, before the election. At the Melcom area there was a struggle in front of the bank. So the policeman asked, what is happening? They are registering for loans. Loans. On the eve of registration, people were being given monies. You remember the police people and others. You be there, they will text money to your momo. You don't remember?
No, I didn't receive so.
Yes, because you wouldn't receive, and so that's why you don't know what we are talking about. You see, those loans that you gave people without collateral, without anything, have you retrieved them? How much have you retrieved? You see, these are the causes for the problem we are in. The post-election expenditure. That is what we are in now. If you solo were given the presidency of this country and you fed people like slaves for 3 weeks, slaves, and let me tell you, did you see Abugleshi? How they were throwing food from the back of a pickup, charcoal pickup, throwing food to people. And then they will come and tell Ghanaians that you spend 600 million cedis feeding Ghanaians. You want us to take it? What did you say?
Well, we gave small and medium enterprises 600 million.
So what went to the feeding?
Feeding?
Yes.
For feeding was a little below 50 million.
So no, 50 million cedis. The COVID to me had been a blessing to the MPP than to Ghanaians. The COVID. Because the amount of money that came as inflows because of the COVID, on our own, we couldn't have been able to generate it. We wouldn't have been able to generate it. Yet, you are blaming COVID. Right. So, Sena, if we are in this because of COVID, aren't we calling for COVID accounts? Are we not entitled to know how you use it? Yet, you don't want to account for the COVID. We are coming to discuss it. And I'll give you the figures. It will shock you. The figures I will give you for COVID expenditure and how the people that had it, it will shock you. And you know it. You know the women organizers and the the amount of money that was given. Anytime I see you on set, I say, this is a principled communicator. Don't say you don't know, because you know that within your party, the amount of money that were given to your...
I'm boxing you.
I'm boxing you. I am boxing you. I am boxing you because I had anticipated that somebody like you would tell the truth.
No, but it's the truth that I'm speaking here.
See,
like all these figures,
look, I was
like,
yes.
That means all the data provided by Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, are lies. I will not lie for
you this
any
time.
money.
Solo. But the truth is that we have left you 2 oil fields, not so. We have left it, or you don't still do that.
We discovered oil for you.
We discovered oil for you. Who did?
When you said it was again,
Kwame Nkrumah had no oil exploration, and the database had been established in 1874.
Good.
What was the reason why Jerry Rawlings established the Ghana GMPs? What was the reason? Do you think that you can discover oil within 2 years? It came around your time, and that's why you are taking credit. When COVID came, you don't want to take the responsibility. Now you quote, Ghana is, Nigeria is also suffering. Everybody is suffering, like you did. Nigeria is also suffering, so what? No, I mean, but Bawumia said workers are suffering, teachers are suffering. Now you have turned from that discussion to Nigerians are suffering, Africans are suffering. No. This is a sovereign country, for Christ's sake. And if you are in a crisis, we the citizens must have solution to it. But we're not going to find solutions from deceiving people like us. You can't do that. What is true the truth is that in the central region, which I come from, there's a factory that has been established since 2017 thereabout. The Commander Sugar Factory.
Don't go there.
I'll go there.
Hey. What's that?
Yes.
It's serious.
What is serious? Don't threaten me because I was the ambassador, but I was the ambassador who supervised it. So that lies, there are some deals, and it is not true.
It is
that factory, the lesson.
Serious for you.
That factory there was not built by Ghanaians. It was built by Ceftec, an Indian company, and the consultants were Indian Sugar Cane Association. The Ministry of Trade, which your boss Alan Chamante is the minister. Has he been able for 5 years tell you that this was corrupt? Has he been able to tell you that? And what is so strange that put your corruption charges aside, get the factory running so that people can be employed. We have let the factory to be in the bush for 5 years. The loan is also going to be paid. Interest rate is going to be paid. Come to Elmina. Felix, you know we built some fisheries there, about 1,000 deep freezers that market women should be using. You've left it in there. The loan we are going to pay. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Compare Commander Sugar Factory to one of the one factory that you are talking about. So the automobile companies, they are being, schemed out of Europe. That's why they are finding their places in Africa. And even Congo, they have the Chinese factories manufacturing cars. Are you manufacturing cars or are you assembling, just assembling and sending it right away? How many of those vehicles that those factories are supposed to produce are on the street? How many have you seen? How many have you seen? I was on a program with your friend Carlos Ahengra. When the new plan workers went on demonstration, he went there and said, "Oh, by May, government is going to reactivate new plan." Do you see new plan? Do you see still new plan? Please, let us be honest with ourselves that we are in a problem we have created. No. Look at CMB. Cocoa. Now our cocoa production is going down.
2021, we had 1,047,000 tons.
See, as at now, the CMB, the cocoa syndication, they cannot even get money to pay the cocoa beans, pay for the cocoa beans. You know this. See, one day I heard that we are going to pay teacher training allowance. That's all. And that you have paid. The nursing training allowance you have paid. When did you say this? When? 2015, 2016.
That you were
yes. So is that the reason why we should still vote for MPP? The teacher training allowance, if you have paid it and it is in arrest, and we have limited the number of people who should have been enlisted in the teacher training colleges and nursing training colleges. After all, after paying them the allowance and going through the courses, have you employed them? Now we have nurses and midwives unemployed association. Let's be real. And what pains me, you see, I'm an old man, but young people who are in this country, whose future depends on the decisions we take today, are being exploited to say the things you are seeing on television. Look at those people that went to Kaswa. Even when the man has not made the point, they have started clapping. 1 billion, then they start clapping. And the man and they start clapping. Young people, they are forgetting that we have mortgaged their future. The GET fund is gone. National health insurance, all the money that is going to come to within the next 15 years is gone. They are forgetting that the bauxite that we have for them is gone. The young people of this country are just watching our river bodies going milky because of the activities of politicians like you. This is the future. This is the fear I have. It's not about GDP, inflation. What is that? What the Ghanaians are interested in? So is that what is that what Ghanaians are interested in? I want the NPP to be sober, so that you don't sound irritating to Ghanaians. Why are you jubilating because you have inflicted more pain and suffering on the people by imposing e-levy? And for that matter, you have to do e-levy party. Didn't you see the majority leaders' birthday party? E-levy cake. Didn't you see it? A country, a president jubilating, a government jubilating, happy that he has imposed a tax hardship on his people. Let's think about Ghana. Let's think about Ghana and forget about political parties first. It's about Ghana first before political parties. If the president has admitted that there are hardships, but Wumia had admitted there are hardships, why do you go to UK to deny it? Why would the president go there to deny it? Meanwhile, sitting there, the people you are talking about, they know more about the economy of this country than you, the president yourself. Of course, I've been an ambassador before. I know what kind of information we pick and send to our countries. So, I think that the economy, as we see it, like the president said, we are all anxious about it. And if you are anxious about it, you cannot kill my anxiety with irritating facts. You cannot kill my anxiety with lies. You can only kill my anxiety if I see that the president has stopped that obtrusious traveling in private jets. Then we now all know that we are okay. Amma, have you got angry or you have never seen when you are driving, your petrol is showing almost red, and then you see V8, people. Have you seen that before? Annoying. When people are thinking about their petrol gauge, you are going to Cape Coast. If you have a function in Cape Coast, you are good. Why don't you get up in time? Then people, and when the president is going anywhere, 45 to 50 SUVs. Now your current style is that when you are at a function for 4 hours, your driver is in your V8 with the engine on. And you say what? Here's a president who said we're not going to buy new cars. Sena, Alhaji. Felix, how many cars did you leave in your handing over to this government?
Oh, but you didn't buy new cars.
Yes, but the president said we're not going to buy new cars.
But you see,
Wait. We left you new cars. So you remember that the president was saying that they were not going to buy any new cars, and that his ministers were going to use buses. Where are those buses? Where are those buses your ministers were going to ride in? Where are they? I'm asking you.
no, the format of the program. When you finish, I'll come.
See, when we were going to school, the only problem we were afraid of, the only thing we were afraid of was our seniors bullying us. No, so. But we didn't have the scare that we're not even going to get food to eat in our schools. We're not going to have classrooms. And now we are not going to sleep in dining halls. We didn't have the situation where I go to school 3 months and come and stay home for more than 6 months. These are the realities of our time. And Dr. Bawumia, whoever set him up to do what he did, has done a lot of damage to the man. Why? The facts, like I said, have been recited by the finance minister. The facts have been recited by the president. So why the repetition, the boring repetition of 2 hours having to sit and then going back? You know, at one point, the students were charging, singing. He thought that they were praising him. They were charging for him to stop, but he didn't stop. He said, I've not finished. I don't want to have a Ghana where policies are discussed on political party lines. I want to have a country where we have a long-term plan, like other sensible countries have had. Long-term plans. If we had not abrogated the Vision 2020, we have passed 2020 not so, by now we would have seen the benefits of the 2020. We put it aside. Now it is a 4-year cycle. And then we have now come into competition. In a race to nowhere, who is the most corrupt? I'm happy these days you don't mention corruption in your discussions. I'm very happy. If it was Muhammad's time, when the finance minister, Setekpe, was going for a loan, but Setekpe has a company which was going to have commission on that, what would you have said? Would you have kept quiet? See, things are happening. We know things are happening. We know things are happening. Now we have our airport, a whole airport. We give it to a private individual. The airport manager said, no, we don't have security control of the airport. And therefore, whatever you transport, whether it's gold, cocaine, or whatever it is, we don't have whatever authority over that. The following day, the man is dismissed and say he has resigned. That's the country we are having. A country where every day news stories of armed robbery. A country where policemen are shooting policemen for bank money. You cannot be happy and be in white solo to come to your program. Today I came for solo.
Oh, how was that?
Thank you very much, sir. Let me ask my kids. You should be in black and ashes because the country is on fire.
He said he's going for a wedding.
Well, I hear him, but he should know that as you are going for the wedding, yesterday the markets got bent. You know, the secondary market got bent.
Apart from our man is in black, you are not in black. Felix is not in black. Sena is not in
So you
black.
cannot even see Felix
This is not black. This is green.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, that's for
No, but it's gone. Oh, people
Gone
think
now.
that I really tell you to rejoice.
But you are rejoicing.
So.
Ambassador,
I rest my case.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so just for the sake of the record, 30th July 2007, pastors pray for Akosombo Dam. A story by Daily Graphic. I'm reading from modernghana.com. With sessions of prayer, wailing, and song ministration, a group of Ghanaian pastors is reinforcing the hope pressed by President Kufuor last week that, quote, God would not allow the Akosombo Dam to hang. Indeed, before the president's expression of faith, the group, with members from Tema, Atimpoko, and Suhum, had begun the crusade for divine redemption, confident that what looked an impossible task before mortals was possible before God. So those are just portions of the story, actually. Should I continue? No, I just wanted. But you were. No,
To tell you that
he was asking about the dates. That was why. So originally, I just wanted to.
No, but you could have given him the
July
date,
2000.
but you went ahead to read the story.
But he's already said it. If I read the story, what does this
Now,
mean?
beyond the prayer, What did President Kufuor do?
The prayer was for.
We did the breed dam.
Oh,
that must be the focus.
My friend.
Okay.
My friend.
We did the breed dam.
My friend.
Thank you.
Google.
Let me do.
Google when the breed
Let me
was
do a
coming.
few messages. This one, some earlier messages I got. Musa Bato and Kumasi says, Sena, till today, I haven't seen any independent political analyst supporting Bawumia's position. And that will tell you it was empty and usual rhetoric. No clear policy of on corruption and no mention of e-levy. However, the much-awaited economic lecture is coming very soon and will be addressed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, where facts and figures will be provided. When fundamentals of truth is weak, swerving e-levy and corruption will expose you. That's coming from Musa Abatwa, who sent that. This one is coming from Martin Kwame, said them, who says, if Dr. Bawumia were to be my student, and he wrote what he said in his last address as an end of semester examination, I would have given him grade F for deviation and eventually graduate him with my newly created class of third class lower. I humbly submit that our VIP is a monumental failure. That's from Sedem. There's also, okay, Dennis Akoto says, the VIP was indeed superb in his delivery, but his act of superb delivery was completely detached from the reality amidst some intellectual dishonesty. Those who know better will expose him in the coming days, as it has already started, but he has to hear some people in the ruling government consistently churn out the falsehood that the government had put up more factories than any other government since independence. It is distasteful, nauseating, and despicable to say the least, for anyone to attempt to compare an insignificant factories built by private individuals under this government to Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who put up about 400 state-owned factories. What comedy is that? I just can't fix it. That's coming from Dennis Yakwete. Thank you. Let me read one more that was sent to me a bit earlier. This is from Habib, who says, good morning, Sena. According to Google, Bawumia is the biggest liar in Ghana. Even when he's fasting, Bawumia finds space to lie. We could all see the man was out of breath. Our pocket is the economy, not empty rhetoric. Bawumia didn't give us a single solution to the mess he and his boss has plunged the country into. Corruption, reckless spending, elephant-sized government with Arabian king style and a Russian oligarch style of living is what has landed the country where we are today. Bawumia didn't say a thing on Momo. E-levy, why? Didn't he say poor people use Momo? As the poor people become rich all of a sudden, God save us. Mama.
Thank you. I would like to take off from where Solomon left off. You know, there's something to be said for tone. You know, it's very important. Tone for me is everything. And for me, the tragedy of what's happening in Ghana today is how this government is clearly tone deaf. Clearly tone deaf, doesn't get it. And the clearest example for me is when Solomon says something like, Volkswagen is coming to Ghana.
They're already.
Thank you, they are here. There's so much development in terms of AstroTurf. And yet when you talk about it, somebody will ask you a question of the price of kinky. What's AstroTurf to a man who cannot buy kinky? What am I doing with AstroTurf if I cannot buy kinky? Now, when I say that, I'm confused that anybody at the helm of affairs cannot get it. How can you not get it? How is AstroTurf any measure of development for any people if they cannot buy kinky? I'm confused. I've been sitting here confused this whole time. That, for me, is the clearest indication of the tragedy that we are in today. The government just doesn't get it. They don't get it. And that's our problem. Let's talk about what happened with the Bawumia lecture. And I was watching it, excuse me, I was watching it with my colleagues in my office. And the whole time I kept asking the question. I was with Ivan, you know, searchers and I would turn around and I'll ask the question, I say, what is this? That's the question I kept asking. And I'm sure they would be laughing at me. Why does she keep asking this question? Because I'll watch for a while and I'll turn around and I'll just ask, what is this? What are they doing? What did we see? It looked to me like a campaign, like a political campaign. It looked to me like the outdooring of the candidacy or the, you know, of Bawumia. Now, at this time, when every Ghanaian is crying. Only last night, I was sitting right here with KS when I interviewed. He made a, you know, a painful joke about how he always goes to the fuel station and he just says to the guy, fill the tank. And the last time he was there, the guy said, oh, boss, should I fill it? And he asked me, what about them? Think of, that's our reality in Ghana today. Even at that level, for a man who always just goes and says, fill my tank, and for a petrol attendant to just ask us, oh, boss, should I? And for him to get that emotion, what about them? That should tell you the mood of the average Ghanaian in Ghana today. And so for what happened to be an answer to that, I'm confused. Seriously, this government doesn't get it. Just doesn't get it. And we are in trouble. We are. Because for me, this would have been the time where, you know, we would have seen, which is what every Ghanaian was waiting for. We kept saying, I mean, when will the government come and say something? When is our president coming to address the state? When is, you know, Bawumia coming to give another lecture? We want to hear from them. And all we wanted to hear from them, perhaps a few things. One, an appreciation of the facts. Two, an acceptance of responsibility. And three, the answer, solution to the problem. These three things, finish. That's it. An acknowledgement of our suffering as our government, that indeed you also live in Ghana, you also appreciate what is happening, you are aware. Two, responsibility for what is happening, because, hello, we voted for you to manage. So, an appreciation of the fact that in the absence of management, what you have done is mismanaged. Accept that, and then go ahead and tell us the solution that you have, because that is the responsibility of any government. I was going to qualify it and say well-meaning, but there's no point to qualify. Just any government. That's the whole point. And so for me, this total lack of appreciation of the situation by itself is what is killing me. That's it. So at a time like this, when every Ghanaian is complaining, we are suffering, the price of bread has gone. I'm watching whole news items on bread. Like, journalists are going out into town to do reports on bread, the price of bread, the price of making bread today. There's a whole news item on that. We here at Connecticut TV have had a whole news item on cocoa. This is our reality today in Ghana. And so, you know, I'm sitting now expecting my vice president to show me that. And as he's being introduced, he's introduced as Ghana's Messiah. And so I quickly said, what is going on here? What is happening? Like, does the MPP appreciate Ghana today? Are we aware? That's one. Two, you see, every time I'm here, I speak about voter apathy. I'm sure that you've noticed that it's something that is very important to me. And the kind of politics we do, for me, goes directly to this issue of voter apathy. You have a vice president who, it's not the government that said it, it's him. He himself, unprovoked, made specific statements, specific promises, specific references that sort of even became taglines for him as a person leading up to an election, for which reason they won the election. Specific things he spoke about: taxation, digitization, you know, all of these wonderful things. You can't tax Momo. You can't, very specific things that the vice president in his person said in a lead up to an election. Wins the election, becomes vice president, and goes against everything that he himself said. You know, there are times when I wonder if this government is deliberately trying to sabotage him. I am confused. Because the government seems to have a list of everything he said and are literally going against everything he said. It's almost as if finish the man. Literally. So in a situation like that, when he has an opportunity to address the nation, it is in his own interest to address every single one of those issues and deal with them. Now, when you dodge, first of all, you're not doing your person any favors. You're not doing your government any favors either. So again, I ask the question, what was that? What did they do? And what did it achieve? What was it? Because I don't care about your ambition right now. If that was an outdooring of Bawumia as a presidential aspirant of the MPP, sorry, nobody cares. Right now, what I care about is the price of fuel at the pump, the price of kinky, the price of bread. I don't care about your ambition. It means nothing to me at this time. And I'm shocked that you don't realize that. How can you not know that? Seriously, how can you not know that? You see, a few things I wrote down here, and that's the complete lack of accountability that I'm, seeing with this MPP government. Complete lack of accountability. It's as if we don't appreciate the essence of that in governance. You are accountable to the people. You have to give account. When everybody is crying about a situation, like I said before, be responsible enough to take your blame and be accountable to the people. So, complete lack of accountability. This thing about it's global, COVID hits all of us, so there's a global, problem, and the war in Ukraine and all of that. Others are managing it better, are they not? At the end of the day, peculiar circumstances will determine how you are hit by any global situation, isn't it? Your peculiar circumstances would also determine how you are hit. Africa, and I can give examples of African countries who in these times are subsidizing and alleviating the sufferings of their people. So for you to come and give me a blanket excuse of it's a global situation, it doesn't do me any favors. Not that I care about you, but it doesn't do you any favors either. So let's stop with that. Because I don't live in the US. When you keep making US references, I mean, if that's how we want to go, then should I expect every positive in the US also? Should I demand that of my government? In as much as I appreciate that I don't live in, in the US. And so when my government tells me free SHS and I take my ward to school, the circumstances around that free are completely different. Don't come to me and tell me about the US being hit by fuel, because the two are not the same. Don't do that. Deal with mine and give me responses to mine. Okay, so let's talk about this last one, and then I want to be charitable to Solomon. Yes, because everything I have on my paper, as I look at my paper, everything that I have on my paper is and I think His Excellency has done that.
Is it mine alone that you are?
Because it's yours that is confusing me.
Nothing is confusing about it.
Final question. After Vice President Bawumia spoke, do we have any meaningful answers following on from that? Absolutely not. That whole exercise was a failure. Complete failure. In fact, it's worse than that. It's worse than it being a failure. It was almost as if It's as if you're going through something terrible. And instead of the person responsible for it to be, at the very least, quiet about it, they decide to host a fanfare. Because that's what it was. It was a fanfare. Felicitations. And speaker after speaker brought felicitations. I bring you felicitations from, I'm like, you're giving me felicitations at this time. So, my only comment on this whole Bawumia finally speaking is that he should not have spoken if this is how he decided to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the sake of clarity, that was a TESCON event, right? Okay, so he was essentially, he wasn't addressing us, was he? He was addressing.
Well, like the vice president speaks anywhere, he's indirectly.
He's addressing all of us.
Whether or not it's a proper venue is another matter, but another matter.
Well, let me read a few messages. This is Walanyo in Akwiti. Says, I wish the NDC will encounter Dr. Bawumia's intellect in economic analysis and resist from sheer insult, name calling, and giving to disrupt the ears of we, the meaningful Ghanaians, to assess the two parties with thoroughly comparative. Okay, that's how it concludes. Walanyo. Thank you for the message. Farouk in Tamale, who says, good morning. So the three MPs refer to the Privileges Committee. There's nothing. The committee will free them. No law is working under this MPP government except the one that will affect the poor. That's coming from Ayu Farouk. Tafai Namrahia says, good morning. Sena, Dr. Bawumia didn't mention E-levy in his lectures, even once. I wonder why Bawumia tried to avoid a policy they fought hard to introduce. But after introducing it, he refused to mention the name E-levy throughout the submission, much more to explain to us his opinion on that killer tax. There's also this one which is coming from, it says, good morning. Okay. Well, the messages some of you sent to me. Jonas says, and I will prefer sugar plant or factory being built from the scratch. That can employ more people than vehicle assembly plants, which can only take 4 people to assemble. Now, if the economy is too good like Solomon want us to believe, why don't they bring their vehicle production plant to Ghana? Rather decide to produce the vehicles in their country for more employment. Don't we have new plant assembly plants in Ghana way back? That's Jonas. There's Edie Gideon, who also sends one, who sends my regards to the panel. And what I noticed the vice president did was just a comic relief full of dishonesty and a campaign to MPP supporters, as in TESCON, and not an address to the economic excruciating hardships Ghanaians are currently going through. I wish to remind the Vice President and government communicators that Ghanaians are no longer that gullible, but are discerning accordingly. The point must be made clear that the 3 items mentioned in comic presentation with regards to our economic woes, that is COVID-19, excess payments of power, and collapse of some banks, does not hold water. Government must therefore admit responsibility and be candid as well. I feel sad for Ghana as at now. There's Kojo Chumbuafo again. Says Sena, when automobile dealers bring in vehicles in containers without tires and exhaust to take advantage of tax loopholes, you call that vehicle assembly. How many people have been employed, as we saw in places like Willowbrook, when proper assembly of vehicles were ongoing in Ghana? Is that what differentiates Alan Chamanti and Bawumia? Tells Solo that the Motor King factory in Tamale was given a free zone license to operate export business in 2014 because of their unique geographical location in Tamale. It was assumed that access to the Sahelian region market to sell motorcycles and aboboya was going to be enhanced. How do I know? I gave them the license. How do they now become one district, one factory? How? To answer Ama, after playing football astroturf on a hungry stomach, we will buy 3 cedi kenke and 20 cedi fish tail, 2 cedis ice water. Then we will then proceed to take 10 cedi trotro home, 35 Ghana cedis for one morning. My wife and my children haven't eaten, but I will be given money supplied by Bawumia's lecture. That's coming from Kojo Chombuafo. There's Hadi in Pig Farm who said Dr. Bawumia was pushed out just to do his usual stand-up comic narration, because the silence of the economy and the city depreciation will not help him going into their internal elections. I can tell for a fact that most MPP members and supporters were embarrassed because they thought Dr. Bawumia was there to talk about the e-levy. But unfortunately, they gave them the old Agama lies of 2015 and 2016. Lying, they say, can only get you a very beautiful wife, but will not keep her. And if a bachelor lies that he's married, he's only deceiving his manhood. That's coming from Alhaji Hadi and Pick Farm. Let's move on to the issue of the 3 MPs who have been referred to the Privileges Committee. 19 past 11 is my time, so I have 40 minutes to go. I can afford 10 minutes each. Let me start with Felix.
I think it's important. You know, I can understand. It is not easy. I have no competition. I was an official. So in times of difficulty, what you do around is to sketch around and see if there are some place of good news that you can to water down the effects of the permanent that you see as a government. So it is little wonder that Solo went for.
Okay, Felix, give me a moment. We're taking a short break so that some work can be done on Felix's mic. A moment.
Lead these people into the light.
Trasacco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658.
Hello, information.
Madam,
Me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, had I?
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I did call. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about Trasacco fast floor.
Trahuako, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg going to catch an guy.
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today, and they gave me an estimate of how much it will cost. Nombo, the estimate is free. It's cheaper than the one I even sent you.
Wow.
Building contractors, foremen, masons. Visit IPCP, the Trasacco Fast Floor. Engineers will assist you build an affordable, faster, and stronger building.
Oh, madam. It is done.
Wow. Oh, Jesus.
Trasacco Fast Floor. Stronger, faster, and affordable.
This is a Trasacco construction product.
And of freedom, he's the Redeemer. And he has labored, he has suffered.
A big thank you for sticking and staying with us. It's the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African television. Felix Kwachofosu was on the floor.
Sure.
Yes,
I'll make it snappy. I was making the point that I'll address the matter of the 3 MPs, but it is important to correct some misimpressions that Solo created in his submission. And I was also making the point that it is understandable the difficulty he is having defending government on this matter, because it is not an easy place to be. In times of difficulty, what governments do is to skirt around for some bits of seemingly the pall of darkness that has enveloped this country is so clear. There's no dispute about it. Everybody knows it. It is felt. It is palpable. You can cut it with a knife. So no talks about a trade balance. You see, it's like a human body. All the parts of your body are important. There are some parts of your body that curb bleeding, you can live. If I cut off your ear, you can live. If I cut off your nose, it will disfigure your face, but you can live. If I remove your heart, you will die. If I remove your liver, you will die. In fact, it is possible to even live without a kidney. So it is not all the parts of your body that are vital to your life. It is the same with macroeconomic. There are 18 of them. Some of them have no relevance to the discussion we have and have nothing to do with the suffering we are going through. The trade balance is about it. It's not within our country. It simply means the difference between what you export and what you import. The truth is that what we import into Ghana is far more than what we export. Except that when it comes to government, our raw materials and commodities that we export bring us dollars, which we lodge at the central bank and call it import cover. So that means that if you need foreign exchange to import something, they can cover you for 4 months. That's all that it means. When you have 1 oil field, you are going to get a certain amount of foreign exchange. When you have 3, you will get more. It is not President Akufo-Addo and Bawumia who found the 2 extra oil fields. We exported in 2016 averagely 70,000 barrels of oil a day. Now they are exporting 200,000 barrels of oil. Not through the sweat or blood of President Akufo-Addo, but through the sweat and blood of President Nombo. So they were mere beneficiaries of additional sources of foreign exchange. So when you do the computation to show that our trade balance is in a positive because we receive more foreign exchange, that is what doesn't mean they've done it. Again, when it comes to import cover, every year they go to the Eurobond market to borrow $3 billion and come and deposit it in the central bank and calculate it and add it to our import cover. This year, the reason why the city has tumbled is that they've not been able to go to the market because the market don't want to do anything with us because of the terrible shape of our economy. And if you want to know that your economy is in terrible shape, look at the ratings given to you by the rating agencies. The very worst we have had since 2002 when it started. So there's no dispute that your economy is in shambles. When you bring statistics and data that are not relevant, and I'm telling you that if you like, go back and listen to our tips. The 3 key things we used to speak about were the exchange rate, the deficit, and our public debt. Because those are the 3 that you have control about. And those are the things that hurt you if they tumble. All of them have tumbled. They are far worse than they were under the NDC. Again, he disputes our public debt. Sena, it is simple. In March, the Bank of Ghana issued what they call a summary of economic and financial data. In there, they gave our total debt as of the end of December. They separated it into external and domestic because we borrow in multiple places. Domestically, when government goes to issue treasury bills or domestic bonds, they take the money in cedis. But when you borrow from outside, you take it in dollars. When you are going to pay, you have to change cedis into dollars to pay. But when the Bank of Ghana is reporting, or the finance minister is reporting, they simply convert all of it into cedis and report that we owe 351 billion dollars. We have disputed that and added money borrowed in the name of ESLA, money borrowed in the name of Getman, and money borrowed in the name of Sino Hydro. All of them add to our public debt. That is how the IMF, World Bank, and all the multinational agencies report it. Because that is what they look at. Now, they said our external debt as of December 2021 was $28.3 billion. Today, or at the time that we were reporting, if we were going to pay, that's how much we were going to pay. However, to get the CD component of that, they used 6 CDs, which was what they said was the end year exchange rates. As I speak to you, that has moved, according to the Bank of Ghana itself, to 7.1. Even though when you go into the market, you can buy it at some place for 8 cedis. The Bank of Ghana uses 7.1. So, as I sit here with you, if today we are calculating our domestic debt, we multiply the 28.3 billion by 7.1. That is if you were even to exclude all other borrowing. And they've done a lot of. Just last week, they were on the market to borrow 1 billion Ghana cedis in treasury bills. That has added to the debt. So Solomon cannot sit here and pretend that in the last 3 months, we have disappeared off the face of the earth and that we are not doing any borrowing. So that 400 billion is even a conservative estimate. It excludes what we have borrowed in addition. I've only used the movement in the exchange rate. And if he doesn't know, he should simply ask the debt management division of the finance ministry how they calculate our debt. They use end period exchange rate. The time we are doing the calculation, the exchange rate of the day is what you use. You don't use an agreed or pre-agreed exchange rate. So our public debt, without additional borrowing in the last 3 months, it's 400 billion without a doubt. You should simply wait for the Bank of Ghana to do their monetary policy committee meeting for the first quarter and come and announce that he will see it. So I don't know what he is disputing. Again, he disputes the profit figures. Sena, there's no dispute about Cote d'Ivoire. Indeed, their population is 27 million, just 3 million lower than ours. Yes. Just 3 million lower than ours. Their debt rate is actually 796. Our debt rate is 1,445. Nigeria is 200 million. They are almost 7 times our size, and yet 3,000 people died. So they have managed it better than me. That's all. It's as simple as that. And yet, their economy is not in the terrible shape ours is. Cote d'Ivoire's economy doesn't have the debts and deficits we have. Their currency has not tumbled the way yours has done. So it is not COVID that has done us in. It is your recklessness, your decision to spend beyond your means that has led to this debilitating situation that you are running away from. So I don't know why you are engaged in what do you call it? An argument with people who are feeling the pinch. You are arguing with people who are suffering. So your argument will fall on deaf ears. You see, when a man has not eaten in the morning, his first instinct is to get angry. So the last thing he needs is for you to tell him he has eaten when he has not eaten. So it is extremely important, like Amma said, that those of you in government communication show a certain level of empathy and respect for the sensibilities of people hearing you. These figures are publicly available. There's a reason why investors are taking their money out of this country. They don't believe that you are managing the economy. Indeed, the last point, Baumia also said, that is perhaps the only truth he spoke at that event, that one of the reasons why our currency is falling is that the investors do not have confidence. They didn't have confidence in our revenue projections. Last year, government collected taxes of up to 55 billion. This year, they said they will collect 80 billion, which is a 40% jump. Investors don't believe that. They know that is not true. You can't make it because no additional economic activity has happened that will warrant collection of that amount. That is the only truth about Miaspo. Except that it was self-indicted. It was an admission of catastrophic failure that he heads the economic management team and his figures cannot be believed by investors. He was admitting failure. That's why I said that he should have resigned and not wasted everybody's time attempting an insipid, watery justification for the disaster that has unfolded before us. So as for the economy, it's in shambles. And by the way, Solo, inflation for December 2016, the last time it was calculated was 50.4%. It is contained in the budget statement read by Kedoforiata in March 2017. Sena, I'm sure next week the Statistical Service will release the inflation figures for March this year. It is going to cross 16%, which is worse than what you inherited. The exchange rate is worse than you inherited. Our debt is worse than you inherited. Our debt to GDP ratio actually is heading towards 90% as I speak. It is worse than you inherited. So there's nothing about this economy that is better than you inherited. And it is important that you accept that. As for the 3 MPs, I think that the law is clear and pretty straightforward. Except that the intentions of the NPP are not low. They are only victimizing Adrasa because he stood their grounds in the matter of the party. That is all. Because we are aware that Kennedy Japon and Henry Kotti have been absent from Parliament for 15 straight days without justifiable cause. So if the NPP meant well, they will not have targeted Adrasa. So this is a vindictive party that is devouring its own members because they crossed what they believe was a certain line. So don't be surprised when you see this government harassing political opponents. Why? If the man is able to pluck feathers from the back of a tortoise, what do you think it will do to chicken? You give the man tortoise, which has a very high shell, and he is able to pluck feathers from the back of the tortoise. When he gets chicken that has feathers, you know what? It will actually peel off its skin as the chicken is still alive. So there's a terribly vindictive party that can go after its own members and punish them severely. They have no scruple, no principle, nothing. 3 members of Parliament violate the same rule according to you, and then you single out one for punishment and retribution. Were it not for the NDC side that insisted that there must be fairness and equity in the application of sanctions, they would only have gone for Adrasa. So what kind of organization are you that asks for you all you believe in is a scorched earth tactics. You know, just destroy everything in your path, so long as anybody shows resistance. Again, let them ask themselves what that kind of action is going to do to their own party. So when you go to Domi Kwanega, you are talking about a sitting MP who has occupied that seat for 3 consecutive terms since 2012, if I'm not mistaken. You think they are going to be able to remove there without weapons and fractures in your own party at a time when your majority is so tenuous and slender? If you don't have majority, you are begging an independent MP to do business with you before you can get crucial legislation through. How did they even get that? Was it not the same lack of leadership? President Akufo-Addo's lack of leadership, the same boisterous posture, the lack of unification in that party. He went to stand up for Sena. When there were difficulties in the party and disagreements in the constituency, he was able to stand on the platform and declare that he cannot cooperate with somebody who doesn't want to work with the party, so they should vote against him. The man won election. Now you've gone back to begging to do business with you in order that you're able to push the decision through. Okay. So when they remove advisor, what kind of peace will be real as Domi Kwanega within the NPP? They are simply going to hand over the seat to the NDC. That's what they will be doing. I don't wish them well in Domi Kwanega, but I did not expect such schoolboy errors. I didn't expect such schoolboy errors in their handling of internal disagreements. Okay. So it is also one more evidence of the mistake Ghanaian made by voting for President Akufo-Addo. He cannot even resolve internal conflicts and problems. One of your MPs is aggrieved over a certain matter. Your majority is so slender. The numbers are so delicately poised that you cannot afford to incur any more losses. You don't find a useful way of addressing this. You want E-level bridge at all costs. So if there's some small resistance from there, you must get rid of it. Now, Kennedy Japan and Henry Cote, if the rules are applied fairly, will also suffer. And given your terrible, horrendous performance in the last 5 to 6 years, there's no guarantee that these seats that traditionally were yours, you'll be able to retain them. Because the people will exact their pound of flesh from you in a manner that will shock you. So let them underestimate the Ghanaian voter and think that they can bring 3 rubber stamp MPs to replace it. They will have the shock of their lives.
Thank you. Thank you.
When the Ghanaian voted for the NDC, they did not make a mistake.
When they voted for the MPP, the Ghanaian has made a mistake. That is the words of Felix Ofosu-Kwakye. So the Ghanaian wasn't thinking right when they voted for the MPP. Again, he said he was going to correct an erroneous impression about what I had told the people of this country about our trade surpluses or balances. He ended up by agreeing with the figures. He could not bring contrary figures to what I had said, that indeed in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, we had a negative or a deficit. For us in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and up to date, we have a trade surplus or positive. So that must be set straight. He comes here to tell the people of this country that we are owing 400 billion and that the Monetary Policy Committee of Bank of Ghana will bring the figures in their next presentation. Why wouldn't you wait? Where is he getting the figures from? It is not true. The figure is a conjecture, it's a figment of his own imagination. And indeed, even if the figure was even to be true, you have to juxtapose your debt to the GDP. As we speak, the GDP is hovering around 82 billion. So take his rate of 7.1 and multiply by the 82 billion. You are going to have close to 582 billion. Is it no more than the very debt that he's talking about? So that means there is a surplus. You have to always checkmate your GDP with your debt to know whether you are doing something good or bad. So that is not true. He talks about investors not having confidence in this country. We have told the people of this country that if you have your MPs fighting in parliament, we are here talking about debt. How do you stop borrowing more? You can only stop borrowing more by taxing your people more or by raking more tax revenue. The government decides to go to the people of this country to tell them to pay by way of e-levy. What did we see in parliament? For the first time in the history of this country, you had a political party leading a demonstration against an imposition of tax. I've never seen so before. The New Patriotic Party never led that. It was elements within the MPP that were supporting it, but as a party to come out to say yentia in our local parlance means you have the money, but you're not going to pay. And that is what the NDC told the people of this country. Let me come to Ambassador Yale's point of what you call Dumso was worse than coronavirus. Dumso, according to John Jinapong, was a financial difficulty. We didn't have money to buy fuel to power our plant. And so if you are a government, your responsibility is to make sure you're making more revenue to be able to make sure the lights are on, as I've witnessed lights being on all day. Yeah. If this production took place between 2011 to 2016, I'm sure how much Pan-African TV would have spent would have been enormous. Time is the healer of all wounds. That's why people can just turn around from the NDC and come and sit here and tell Ghanaians that they have no clue about. And Ambassador was talking as though he's neutral here. You are here representing a political party. You are an NDC member, and I was wondering how he was going on and saying that people are using fuel. At least he has been an ambassador before, and he knows that we were paying for his fuel. So sometimes I, Solomon, that I've never occupied any position in life, in government, that I can pride myself that I've never taken a coupon from government, I can make such pronouncement, but not someone that has enjoyed. Again, that trouble guys talk about that employed more people. What is the genesis? We have to discover oil that they classified as a jungle in this country in commercial quantities. Out of it, that we had the Atuobo gas. You understand the point? Galamsey, he said all our water bodies are turned into milk. When we were fighting Galamsey in their 2020 electioneering campaign, they had their members go to the Galamsey site, Kwakubuahin and Obin, to tell them that when we come, we will allow Galamsey. What are we talking about? And my sister said something about price of bread. However, she failed to admit that Ukraine invasion has a problem. As a country, we import more flour and wheat from Ukraine. Flour is out of wheat. So if the source of where you are importing from has a problem, definitely it will affect it. So if you have rather confirmed our position that the Russian invasion of Ukraine has a problem with our economy, has impacted something. So we have to understand. Now coming back to the 3 MPs, like I would agree with Felix that nothing good is not going to come out. Anything good is going to come out of it. Because see, the very constitutional provision that they are relying on is then 15 days without writing to the speaker. Is that also? And that if you are unable to give a reasonable excuse why you were absent, that is where the privileges committee can take you on. What is the definition of that reasonable excuse? They are peer reviews, they are friends. Sena, are you for any moment thinking that an MP for Kakwe South will go and say that because you did not write to the speaker or the speaker did not accept your writing, I'm saying you should be taken out of parliament? It's a joke. You understand? And to my own MPP, we have to ask ourselves why we are getting to this part. For the NDC to have the balls.
They have always had the balls.
They don't have the balls. The Ghanaian. You see, Felix was talking as though elections were held about 5 years ago. We held elections in this country only 2 years ago when the Ghanaian entrusted the destiny of this country into the hands of the MPP once more. So under any given time and opportunity, the Ghanaian prefers the MPP than the NDC. What has happened to us that as a result of our actions and inactions and our way of behavior, we can't work with this, we can work with that. We go to primaries, you don't want others to contest. Internal election, polling station election, someone keeps the forms in his bedroom as though he is a repository of all knowledge. Then prevents others from engaging in the process. You go to election, you will lose. You reduce your numbers for us to have a hung parliament. That is why all these effects will come. Other than that, look, MPs absented themselves from parliament. It is always a regular feature. When you send them there, they don't go to work. They do other businesses because the idea or the impression they have about being in parliament is that of riches. So when they go there and see that, hey, that is not the situation, then they begin to do galamsey in town. They are working. So parliamentary business always suffers. I tell them they should bring all their books And let us go into it from time immemorial and see the number of times that people go to parliament. So this is not news. It's not going to end anywhere. It's just a charade. They should leave them to go and work. I would only admonish electorates to look beyond money. That when someone is coming with a beautiful idea, you don't go and hustle the person with monetary considerations before voting for the person, so that we get those that want to work for this country rather than those that will go there and do other business using the what you call parliament as a Ponzi. This is all that I will say.
Thank you, Solo. I'll come to you next, but before I do that, Julius Agahoa Tahiri says, Sena, let me salute Ambassador Sampiali for educating Solomon in your studio. Dr. Baumia is a disgrace to this country, and whoever advised him to speak 3 days ago has done a great disservice to him. No wonder he was sweating under air condition. Koshi Pardon will say, the government will never get it, because the MPP is made up of a special breed of Ghanaians who cannot take the desecration of accepting failure, especially when it will mean an outperformance by the eternally incompetent NDC. The psychological stuff, and everything must be done to protect egos. If it means self-ridiculing or an insult to the intelligence of the rest of us, so be it. You don't get it. Amma.
Well, I have to agree with the latter part of Solomon's submission 100%. My phone is not here. If it were, I would have checked for when I made a blog post. Must have been in 2010 or 2011 where I asked the question, where are the parliamentarians in parliament? You know, because I think that was the time when GBC had started GTV Govern. It doesn't even exist anymore. And so for the first time, we had eyes in parliament. We were watching parliamentary proceedings randomly. It didn't have to be dramatic. It didn't have to be any specific issue. It was just us having eyes in parliament to see. And I was alarmed by the number of empty seats in parliament day in, day out. So I remember writing about this and asking the question that, what is it as an MP who has been voted to go into parliament to represent your people? What is it that is so pressing or more important that necessitates you not being in parliament? And I was admonishing every Ghanaian to watch, those proceedings and make a decision as to whether we're going to retain these MPs or not. And I made a point that for me, I was always looking out for Adjoa Safo there. This must have been in so many years ago. Always looking out to see, because if I didn't see her, next time, I was going to make sure that we're also going to go on an anti-campaign against her. Because you have to be in parliament. This is not me saying it. This is the Supreme Court saying it in the recent decision that it made. This issue about representation, and how that issue of representation was that one issue that they used to make a determination on whether the deputy speaker has a vote, should have a vote, doesn't or should not. Why representation is so key to this business of legislation. And so for me, I am alarmed till now that this issue still persists, where parliamentarians just decide not to be in parliament. So where are you? What are you doing that is more important? You see, that for me is the crux of this matter. And I have to agree with Solomon that nothing would come out of this. Nothing. Nothing. I mean, look at the names. So for me, then I ask the question, this whole thing about a hung parliament and how we all sort of had this expectation of it being the answer to all of our problems in parliament or with the legislation, has that been the case? Have our expectations been met? No. No. Unless there's an issue that has to be decided on, of course, then people will be flown in with private jets. People will get into parliament at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., for that. Take those things away and parliamentarians would still not go to parliament. Even now, when the numbers are so crucial, even now. Let's talk e-levy. Hang parliament, split parliament, whatever you choose to call it. Has the e-levy not been passed? It's been passed. So I ask the question again. This whole thing about a hang parliament, a split parliament, is Ghana the better for it? At the end of the day, bottom line, crunch time, has it been to our benefit? Or somehow have our parliamentarians found a way to make it business as usual? That's my question. At the end of the day, bottom line, have we seen any improvements in the business of parliament because of it? Have we? Have we? As a people, can we point to one thing that we can say that this shows that when we experimented with this thing of a hang parliament, things are different? Can we point to anything? The only thing we've seen in parliament is drama. That's all. Drama. Listen, I enjoyed watching the parliamentarians slap themselves. If I can't slap them and they can slap themselves, hey, go ahead, keep slapping yourself. It was great. I enjoyed it. Go ahead and slap yourself. If you can't, slap yourself some more. Because at the end of the day, the average Ghanaian has not benefited from that organ of government. It is lame duck, our parliament. Let's be realistic, let's be truthful. What has come out from parliament? From since this whole, what? And we all sat in this country and were excited that, oh, now we have a split, you know, and now people are going to vote on conscience. Now we are going to see real, you know, happening in parliament. And then, of course, when the Honorable Alban Bagwin became the speaker, we're like, oh, great, you know, let's experiment with our democracy. Let's get ready for some action. Something wonderful is about to happen. What has happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Again, the average Ghanaian, I, myself, as an average Ghanaian, I'm sitting back, I'm looking at all this, and I'm asking myself again, back to voter apathy, what's the point? It is time for Parliament as an institution to realize the role it can play in our lives, bread and butter issues, the role it can play in this thing we call democracy, and for Parliament to sit up and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you too. Before I come to Ambassador, Masola Akpabli says, according to Baumia, free SHS is a social intervention, but the e-block schools built by the SY Mahama government, which accommodated students and social interventions. Where is the logic in this? Ambassador.
When I mentioned your white shirt, I was just joking. You know that I was joking. I didn't intend that you should take it. If your people will harm you, tell them that I was joking. I've said that. You know, what worries me is that in this country, like my daughter is saying, everything is spoiled. You know, 8 years do this. Say everything is spoiled. Our education is spoiled. After many years of reforms, what do you have to write about? No textbooks. A minister, oh, they are doing proofreading. It will come in April. Nothing happened. Was it not here when somebody said Commended Sugar Factory will be commissioned in April?
Yes, that's it.
What did they?
What is to be commissioned?
More importantly, have they grown sugar cane?
Oh yeah, we
Was it not the lack of sugarcane farm that's got them to close?
No. You even remembered me. It was part of my. Let me just say that.
No, but this is time. This is just a
I will not have the opportunity.
Don't worry. But he's on
But the point is
that
the point is that at the time we were leaving office, I have supervised a loan agreement of 24.5 million for the planting of sugarcane. I tell you this every day, isn't it? Yes. Have you chopped that money also?
No, we haven't.
The money
What
is
happened to the money?
Everything is in tax.
Everything is implanted. So the argument you were making that so the argument you were making that the sugarcane were not there before the factory was built. What was the argument for? Because sugarcane takes just 6 months to 9 months to plant. So the common sense thing to do is to build a factory. In between, you do the nursery. Today, all the sugarcane that you are selling to the Petitian people were the nursery that the Indian planted. You know. So I hear my friend Henry Kote is one of them, isn't it? Yeah. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. This is a man who has carved his teeth as a man of discipline. And because of that, human beings have lost their shelter. Go to Abobulashi. The excavators demolish everything there. What has happened? What has happened? In human settlement issues, if your government fails to accommodate people, and the people they are aching for living, no, so they are come from Tamale and they pay just to find something to eat. Where? This settled where? The onion market. Is it not the people who themselves bought the land? My friend, I know I'm from Central Region. You know, you scattered them, instilling discipline. What about parliamentary discipline? What about parliamentary discipline? Or you felt bigger than parliament that I can go bullshit, I won't write anything. As for our friend Kennedy Japon, he's above the law. Simply above. Even the Supreme Court can call him to order. Yes, he's above the law. A judge can say that, do you know the man you are, the defendant, who the defendants are, intimidating the plaintiff that, hey, this man is untouchable. He is somebody who can insult a judge openly, and then for the first time, contempt case is referred to the Attorney General Department, and nothing comes up of that. So why? If you can insult a judge and go scot-free, what about not going to Parliament?
In fact, we were told that because the judge he insulted said he should come and show cause why he should not be punished severely for insulting him. The judge was biased, so he was removed from the case. But
several times, I mean, if you do a criminal law, criminal law.
Are you are the lawyer?
Yes, you are called the
show cause.
The summons in service come and show cause why
they said because of that statement, the judge was biased and therefore he was asked to stand aside.
Okay.
Oh, but that is a ruling that is Supreme Court. Justice Yoni Kulendi was the one who explained this publicly. Would
you also allow me to interject?
Oh, that's why.
Or will you
provide information?
You see, but in the parliamentary drama, you know, my amazement is the fact that you are 137, we are 137. There's a law that prohibits crossing carpet. No, so. Then somebody says, I'm going to do business permanently with the MPP. And now he becomes part of your number to become majority. Where would this happen? Did the people of Fomina vote for him to come and do business permanently with the MPP? Now he give you the majority. And our own people have also accepted it, that they are the majority. Sena, some of the MPs are not thinking about their legislative duties, because they don't even understand. They don't even understand the process of making the law. I'm ready for the privileges committee, and I will prove it to them. You know, you have been voted to come to Parliament to come and enact laws. They are doing registration of members of your party in the constituency. So all of them, look at that time, the period, all of them, especially from the majority, so-called majority side, were in Ashanti, taking care of their registration. Well, of course, you can even leave a hospital with COVID conditions to come and supervise elections. So it's no new. It's no news. The law is straight, that if you absent yourself for 15 days, is that not the case? You'll be taken to the privileges committee. And because it has been done in such a way that They don't care. They don't take Ghanaians for anything. But who makes the law? So if the lawmakers are the lawbreakers, who arrest them? What will happen in this country is just not good. It is just not good. Oseche Bense is taking salary as the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, and even in the local government, civil service. If you absent yourself for 10 days, what happens to you? What happens to you? So if gold rust, what will you do? You who make the law that 10 days of absenteeism, you would go home forever. The ordinary person will suffer dismissal. But the people who we pay, who we give land cruisers, who we give accommodation for them to come and just sit and talk for us, they can break the law and go scot-free. This is not good. So this is not good, especially those on the government side.
It should be both.
It is no, but wait a minute. If the NDC MPs don't come to power, then you can pass your government bills not so easily. Not so. What I'm saying that you have a greater responsibility. Members of government have a greater responsibility to sit in parliament and defend government policies and enact government policies. But look at you. Instead of the government policies, you are interested in your own and be returned to parliament. I am in Dansoman, Felix. You know I've stayed in Dansoman all my life. I don't know where my constituency and ministers, MP's office is. I don't know where my MP's office is. I think I'm not a small boy in Dansoman. I've lived in Dansoman all this while. I am part of the people who brought Dansoman to where it is. And that the MP has a duty to say, oh, Sam, this is what we are discussing. What is your own opinion? Because I'm not an ordinary person in Dansoman. Never. For the 5 years that Oslewusu has been my MP. So who does he consult? On whose behalf does he take my health insurance? On whose behalf does he take the common fund?
So with Kolekoti, I've been there for long. I've never seen the NDC MP.
So we have we have not seen this. So that's what they are talking about.
Yes.
And to add insult to our wounds, they won't even go to parliament. The parliament that we have asked them to go. So, but like you, I believe that nothing will happen, because it is not the speaker who takes the decision. It is the members of the appointment privileges committee, isn't it? And then some of the key members of the privileges committee, even from my own side, are the people challenging the speaker. So we are crying more than they believed. If MPP is in court to reduce the numbers of the NDC MPs, we are, fighting the speaker for a legitimate cause to reduce the numbers of the MPP. As someone watching it. So, you were saying that I have been in this country. Everybody knows me. This morning, but for my wife, I would have come here in NDC t-shirt, because I cannot be anybody. But as a Ghanaian, I can see what is wrong with this country. Whether it's MPP or NDC, I can see it. That if you come from your village to come and stay in Accra, and the 1 week after going, come to Accra, when you are returning with a Land Cruiser, and stay in Parliament, you are not there. Today, one MP, he's a Minister of State or Deputy Minister of State. He's a board member. He himself is a contractor. Check the contract that are being given by the ministry. Check if we cannot find the list of ministers who have are contractors. Check today, the armed forces and immigration, they have the guts to bluff. I have sent 20 people to army. You have all these privileges. Go and sit down and think about us, that we don't need yield levy. You won't go. So what is happening? It is happening in our public life. We thought Parliament was a bastion because it was made up of two different political parties. But like my daughter is saying, what is the benefit? Chief, what is the benefit to us? That we pay so much money to maintain structures of the country, but nothing comes from it.
Okay.
Today, of all the pain you have taken us through, 8 people died in the last election. Do you know that? 8 people died to bring this parliament. Is that what their parents should laugh about? That people have died to send you to parliament. Now you have the luxury to decide, I don't want to be in parliament, this and that. I believe that we should all pray for Speaker Barbin, because that gentleman seeks to bring sanity in parliament. Not so? You don't believe that? Yes. So, we have a problem with the media. After our Supreme Court, you people say it's 7-0 FC. You people say I'm not one. I'm a lawyer. You people, they say it's 7-0 people. They say call them 7-0. Me, I'm a lawyer. I'm not part of it.
I'm not calling anybody 7-0.
And then you come to Parliament and we go to Flagstaff House to trouble. Flagstaff House, there are people who are selling phones and they are national security. They are there. There are people who are social media directors. They are there. President increasing his expenditure from 2 billion to 3 billion overnight. It is there. The only place that all of us pray that we can have our say to, now there's a problem. So where do we go?
Ambassador, thank you.
Do we go or did you come?
Thank you very much. We have to call it a day on today's show. A big thank you to all of you. Let me once again say a big thank you to our
some of the more particular we will play.
Giving us a platform. The strong alumni of this show, always on the base. And a big thank you to Amaka, who is the general manager of Pan African TV.
Common sense voice.
He's appalled by the Bamia's incompetence. But it's an informed deduction.
So you're going to tell us when the Commandant Sugar Factory?
April.
So which sugarcane will you be using for the production, please? Which sugarcane will you be using for production? Or you import what you call molasses? You bring molasses to it. So how come when you
Thank you very much.
Oh, you had run
The rest of your weekend was fruitful. And yes, that same time was open 6 months before on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and